Chapter 882, Taking the Lead. Anemo spoke of his worries. The entire camp was silent. Liang Wei frowned. He did not fear strong enemies. In the battles of these past years, they had beat enemies that were better equipped or outnumbered them multiple times. However, the present situation was too terrible. It was not how powerful Hai Xian Bing was, but all of Nether Realm held serious doubts in the succession of the new king. In other words, Zhuemo did not have enough of a reputation in the Nether Realm. If Darren publicizes your identity, maybe. Anemo couldn't help but say. Liang Wei shook his head. Not suitable. That way, the enmity may become even stronger. In their eyes, the king is an outsider. More people will oppose an outsider taking the throne. Many people couldn't help but agree. If it was not for the Nether King's personal appointment, even they were not willing to have an outsider be their king. Everyone had heavy hearts. When they found that all of the people in Nether Realm opposed them, they found how minuscule their power was. Hai Xian Bing was truly skilled. Everyone's gazes gathered on Zhuemo. They had no plans left. Yet what surprised them was that Zhuemo did not show any panic, and actually had a bemused expression. However, something seemed to be burning in that pair of eyes. Everyone stilled, King was. Before they could understand, they heard Zhuemo speak, from where we are, which is the shortest path to Nether King Palace. Anemo pointed at a route that had been labeled in red on the Jie map. This one. This was our original plan, but now, the enemy most likely would have set up many obstacles on this path to stop us from reaching Nether King Palace. I suggest that we choose a more hidden. Zhuemo interrupted Anemo's words and said decisively, we will go on this path. Anemo panicked. King. The enemy will have sent large numbers of battalions on this path, even if we can break through, the time spent, we would miss the coronation, and Mo's commanders spoke in agreement to try to stop Zhuemo. They were more familiar with Nether Realm. They knew that this path would be one that the enemy would heavily defend. Everyone even knew that an Mo saying the path would take time was just to save King's face. In their view, with the manpower they had now, they could not break through the others' defense lines. Liang Wei did not speak, but his expression was also one of disagreement. The rebels would set up great obstacles on the shortest route to stop them from reaching Nether King Palace. However, Liang Wei had settled down after the hardships of the past years. While he was slightly puzzled, he also knew that Zhuemo was not a rash person. Also, behind Zhuemo was a powerful genius like Pu Pu. How could he make such a common mistake? Liang Wei did not find Pu Pu around Zhuemo. He guessed that Pu Pu was a hidden advisor that helped Zhuemo through the 10-finger prison. Had Mo Cloud Sea's battalions already arrived? Liang Wei shook his head. It would appear that the arrival of Vermilion Bird Camp or Sin Battalion would greatly increase their manpower, but in Liang Wei's view, this was not a good move. Mo Cloud Sea's battalions were from the outside, but this battle was one internal to the Nether Realm. If Zhuemo's identity as the king of Mo Cloud Sea was exposed, Zhuemo would be considered an outsider in the eyes of most people. Hai Xian Bing only needed to make some waves, and the great majority of the people would side with Hai Xian Bing. No one liked to be ruled by an outsider, even if Zhuemo was appointed the successor by the old Nether King. All the factions of Nether Realm would rebel. While Zhuemo at present was weak in the eyes of other people, no one doubted his legitimacy as the new Nether King. They just had insufficient confidence in him. Zhuemo looked around. His gaze flashed with strong confidence. They were no weighty presence, but people could feel the great power. Under this kind of gaze, everyone quieted. Zhuemo smiled slightly and suddenly asked a completely unrelated question: how did Shi unite the Nether Realm? Mo stilled and then had a reminiscing expression. In the past, King led us across the Nether Realm and we conquered Jie by Jie. King was too powerful. No one was able to stop us. Everywhere we passed, all the factions submitted. Many of the people present had participated in the war to unite the Nether Realm back then. In that war that was not very long, sure had been unrivaled. When they thought back to it now, they couldn't help but tremble from the bottom of their hearts. In their minds, that was a grand and glorious campaign. But soon, their thoughts came back. They felt slightly dispirited. Compared to the glory of the past, they were in decline now. Mo detected the changes in expression. He smiled, but then he quickly put away his smile. The light in his eyes grew stronger as he said seriously, "If that's the case, then just like sure in the past, we will fight Jia by Jia on our path to Nether King Palace." All of the noise disappeared. The entire camp was so quiet the drop of a pin could be heard. Everyone gaped as they looked dazedly at Mo. They couldn't speak. Mo's voice clearly passed into the ears of everyone in the camp. His voice was not fast, not excited, not deep, but seemed to carry a power that could reach into their hearts. "If only by conquering them will I be able to step onto the throne, if only by defeating them will they shut their mouths, if only battle can bring peace, if only power can make Nether Realm submit. So be it." Mo sat straight, his eyes becoming burning bright, but his tone still calm and flat, filled with great confidence. For some reason, the blood in everyone's bodies started to heat up, and their breathing started to become heavy. As Mo's expression became authoritative, his tone slowly became cold. "The honor and glory of the king will not be challenged. Since only by washing the throne in their blood will they understand, then we will conquer them, crush them, destroy them. Use battle and death to command them, submit or die." The eyes of all of the Mo battle generals, including an Mo, turned red, their breathing deepened as their eyes widened. Among the Mo, the king was unparalleled. Mo stood up. The lines of his face were so cold they seemed to be carved from the stone. He looked around expressionlessly. Whoosh, everyone stood up. They threw out their chests. They hadn't expected that king would be so strong and domineering, their fighting spirits were roaring. "I will lead you, fight Jia by Jia, to Nether King Palace." Yes. All of the Mo commanders responded. They were excited and wanted to move immediately. "Liang Wei. Fei Lei." Mo said gravely. "Present." Liang Wei and Fei Lei responded. Mo looked directly at Liang Wei and ordered, "You will lead the king's horn to protect the flanks." "Yes." The two unhesitatingly responded. Mo's cold and icy gaze was filled with indescribable pressure. Their hearts uncontrollably tensed. Everyone knew, the king was angry. The astounding pressure that Mo released caused every person's heart to instinctively tremble. For some reason, they also felt an unusual excitement and ecstasy. The previous Mo had a good temper and treated people well. Everyone liked him, but in their view, he was not qualified to be the Nether King because he lacked the domineering presence of a king. The Mo liked combat. They forever revered those strong. Logic was nothing, and not as enjoyable as fists. The entire battalion quickly gathered. Mo's battalion contained almost all the experts of Western Jail Mansion. While they were not many in number, they were powerful. When they heard that King was about to lead them personally to fight to Nether King Palace, the entire battalion boiled over. They had heard enough of the rumors in the past few days. They did not fear battle. It should be like this. Everyone had the same thoughts. When they saw Mo appear at the front of the ranks, the cheers shook the sky. The entire battalion was energized, and everyone was extremely exhilarated. From now, King would lead them to fight to Nether King Palace. There seemed to be a ball of fire burning in Mo's chest. He was truly angry. Sure did not have much time. If they were constantly delayed like this, he would not be able to ascend to the throne of the Nether King before Shure's death. Mo decided to use the simplest and crudest method to solve the problem. Since Shur had united the Nether Realm like this back then he would do it as well. At present, he had the ability. He rode a copper-boned Nether Bird King. This copper-boned Nether Bird King was about the height of 3 people added together, the wingspan 7 jong, and enormous in stature. The bird did not have any feathers, and the copper bones were neatly arranged in rows. Its skin was thick, and it was strong, extremely fast, but it had a terrible temper. Usually, it was only willing to let an Emo ride it. Yet when Emo rode the bird, it was unusually tame and obedient. The soldiers were extremely surprised. When an Emo handed over the reins, he was about Zwemo's safety, so he stood by Zwemo's side. Zwemo picked out a gold crystal sword from his ring and waved it a few times. His movements looked unprofessional and made an Emo worry slightly. Directing a battalion was not the same as fighting as an individual. He did not know what King's skill in this area was. King had never shown it before. "Are you prepared?" Zwemo asked without turning his head back. An Emo shook. "Prepared." He glanced at Zwemo and asked carefully, "King, should we ask about the other's origins?" Zwemo glanced at an Emo and then moved his gaze away. "No need." Meeting King's gaze, Mo's heart suddenly jumped. The coldness in King's gaze was completely undisguised. Even he, a battle general that had been through hundreds of battles, felt completely cold all over. Zwemo stared forward and said coldly, "Anyone that is in front of us is our enemy. Anyone that is our enemy shall surrender or die." An Emo suddenly felt a chill. Sitting on the back of copper-boned Nether Bird King, Zwemo raised the gold crystal sword in his hand. The golden sword flashing with blinding light under the sun like the king's banner. Everyone raised the Emo weapons in their hands with enthusiasm. The Emo weapons were like a forest and the killing intent rose into the sky. Chapter 883, The first battle. The enemy clearly hadn't thought that they would immediately start fighting without even exchanging a greeting. The mission they had received was to harass and delay the speed of Zwemo's troops. When Zwemo appeared at the front of the battalion, it caused a wave of exclamations from the enemy. What did this person want to do? The camp immediately shifted. Zwemo didn't even bat an eyelash. His upraised sword suddenly swung down. Kill! Zwemo charged out first against the enemy. The generals shouted in unison, "Kill!" The battalion that had been gathering their power charged out behind Zwemo like a overflowing dam. The thunderous roars caused the enemy battalion to panic even more. Zwemo's face was cold and emotionless. Once again, he raised the sword in his hand. Everyone unconsciously raised the Emo weapons in their hands. King was like a power whirlpool. Their Shen power was gathering towards King at an astounding rate. They felt an indescribable sensation. Usually, they were the ones that sent Shen power. This time, they felt as though their Shen power was being drawn away. It was this unique attractive force that made them send out their Shen power without even thinking. These experts of Western Jail Mansion were experienced in battle and reacted quickly. Many of them quickly detected a problem and their expressions suddenly changed. The Shen power that each of them had sent out just now was 2 times the usual amount. Not good. They almost jumped in alarm. The Emo fighting method was different from the other 2 races. In a Emo battalion, each member would send Shen power towards the battle general, the Shen power would gather at the battle general, and then the battle general would release it in an attack. Due to the condensation of power, Emo battalion's attack was extremely strong. But the amount of Shen power that each Emo battalion member would send out was strictly limited each time. This was the crucial aspect of a Emo battalion skill. Using a 1,000-member battalion as an example, if every person sent slightly less Shen power, the amount of Shen power that would gather on the battle general would dramatically decrease. But if everyone sent just a little more Shen power, it would be a calamity for the battle general. Shen power that surpassed the tolerance of the battle general's body would cause the battle general to die. This battalion had followed an MO for a long time. An Mo's powerful body allowed him to withstand an astounding amount of Shen power. The amount of Shen power they usually sent was already greater than other battalions. Yet just now, they had seemed to be possessed, and the Shen power they sent was twice the usual amount. Even an MO Darren would not be able to withstand such a terrifying amount of Shen power. The minds of these experienced Western jail mansion experts blanked in terror. They seemed to see King being overwhelmed by the Shen power and explode into countless pieces. The following scene stunned them dumb. The scene in their eyes would be deeply imprinted in their minds. They would never forget in their lives. When they talked about the past glories with their descendants, this scene would always cause them to lose focus, and their bodies to shake, and lips to tremble. On the back of the copper-boned nether bird King, a terrifying amount of Shen power shrouded King. Because the Shen power was so thick, King's figure even became blurry. But that seemed to be an illusion. The blurry figure quickly became clear. The Shen power that was so concentrated it was almost tangible furiously flooded into the sword in his hand. The upraised sword flashed with blinding golden light like a bright sun. They were not able to see the shape of the sword. King held the sun up high, his back straight as he looked down on the world. Zhuo Mo's face seemed so cold and hardened, as if it was made from granite. His eyes were so bright people could not look directly at them. The eyes were filled with dominance and invasiveness. As the Shen power flooded into the gold flow sword, the sword turned into liquid metal. It could not tolerate Shen power. But Zhuo Mo did not seem to feel it. His eyes looked unmovingly at the enemies in front of him. His right hand didn't even change from how it had gripped the sword. He could clearly see the terror and panic on the faces of the enemy. He could clearly see the openings in the battalion that had occurred due to chaos. He could see the enemy's timidity and lack of fighting spirit. His mind was unaffected. He was king. No one could stop him. Kill. The deep roar exploded in people's minds like thunder, deep and with soul-shaking power. The ball of light that was like a blinding sun in his hand moved down. The ball of light that was a mix of Shen power and liquid metal flew towards the enemy battalion. The enemy battle general finally regained his clarity. His face was bloodless. Motherfucker. He swore in hopelessness. All of the information said that the new king was weak. He wanted to say to those people, open your eyes and see, this is weak. But he knew that if he could not stop this attack, everyone would die here today. He roared ferociously and charged towards the ball of light. Just as he was about to collide with the ball of light, the light suddenly exploded. No one could describe this attack. The blinding ball of light suddenly exploded. Everyone suddenly felt their field of view turn completely white. When their vision recovered, a golden sea of light had completely consumed the enemy battalion. The liquid metal had turned into countless slender dark red lines that swept through in the golden sea of light piercing enemy ranks. Everyone was astounded by the scene in front of them. They didn't even feel their bodies trembling instinctively. The weaker enemies had been immediately turned to dust by the golden light. The golden light was stunningly powerful, but what was truly frightening were the bright red slender threads. The gold flows of metal liquid had exploded into metal drops that were the size of beans. These metal droplets were expelled astoundingly fast from within the golden light, almost unstoppable, and able to penetrate multiple people in an instant. The enemy battalion seemed to have been viciously shredded. When the light dissipated, there were less than 300 people standing in the enemy battalion. They were scattered around, their expressions blank as though they did not understand what had happened. Everyone knew that these people were finished. This battalion was finished. A short silence appeared on the battlefield. The surviving enemies had not recovered from the first attack, and the Western jail mansion experts behind Zhuo Mo had been completely stunned by Zhuo Mo's shocking attack. An Mo. The cold voice broke the battlefield's deathly silence. An Mo shook and his thoughts came back. His face still held traces of disbelief. If he had only felt loyal to Zhuo Mo before due to loyalty to the king, now, he was completely won over by Zhuo Mo. He bowed on the Mo steed as he responded, his voice trembling slightly, present. 15 minutes, clear the battlefield. Zhuo Mo's tone was unquestionable and decisive. An Mo was not discontent at all. He accepted his orders without hesitation. Yes. He turned and picked a few dozen steeds to charge towards the enemy battalion. When they came in front of the enemy battalion, those remaining survivors seemed to not realize the arrival of death. They stood there soullessly in shock. An Mo's heart felt a wave of coldness. He knew that King's attack just now had completely destroyed these people's spirits. Even if these people survived, they would never step on to the battlefield again. Fei Lei's body shook. His eyes were wide as he stared at the scattered battle formation. He did not know that his face was covered in tears. King. This was a king. He finally saw the birth of the Mo's new king. Everyone was completely won over by the domineering attack. Such a strong attack, this was king. Even they would not be able to do anything against this attack. He willingly submitted. He suddenly felt that it was good fortune and glory to be able to participate in this campaign. Liang Wei's mouth was wide but he could not make a sound. The blood had completely left his face. His fists were balled tightly, and he didn't even feel his fingernails biting into his flesh. While he was humble on the surface, he was still proud inside. This pride came from his strength. His present strength was that of a top battle general. Facing any kind of situation, he would not be left without any solution. This was the source of his confidence. Yet Zhuo Mo's attack gave him an unparalleled blow and shock. He found that, no matter what method he used, he would not be able to withstand this blow. In front of absolute power, his plans and tactics were of no use at all. This conclusion was a great blow to him. How was it possible? How could there be such an unreasonable attack in this world? Yes, unreasonable. No matter how you responded, no matter what formation you used, no matter how you moved, the other only needed this one attack. A feeling of helplessness that he never had rose. Liang Wei had a grimace on his face. This is God level. So strong. Pu Yao murmured, slightly unfocused. While Zhuo Mo had rescued them, the process of being rescued was not as shocking and spectacular as the attack displayed in front of them. Wei quickly recovered. He noticed Liang Wei grimaced. Liang Wei has received a great blow to his confidence this time. Zhuo Mo's unreasonable attack had completely upended the battle general system that Liang Wei had studied for so long. The blow was unparalleled. Pu Yao's thoughts came back and he recovered his calm. No one can help him on this. If he could overcome this mental barrier, then he can truly elevate himself to the same level as Gongsun Cha and Bihan. His skill right now isn't bad, Wei said. A great battle general needs a big heart, Pu Yao said coolly. Zhuo is really strong now. Wei couldn't help but praise. His tone was filled with accomplishment. Even they had not thought that Zhuo Mo would grow to such a level. He is fated to be king. Pu Yao said seriously. The battlefield was quickly cleaned up. An Mo's strength against these defeated soldiers was destructive. No one was left alive on the enormous battlefield. Everyone looked towards Zhuo Mo with heated gazes. Nothing was more powerful than the truth. Starting from this battle, everyone believed that this was the journey of legend. No one could stop them. Fight their way to Nether King Palace. On the back of the copper-boned Nether Bird King, Zhuo Mo's expression was still cold as he sat like a statue. His expression had not changed after the victory. Under everyone's heated gaze, Zhuo Mo once again took out a gold flow sword. Without any flourish, the sword pointed forward. The cold order was like flame that caused everyone's fighting spirits to rise. Advance. Chapter 884, Advance. Advance. All troops, advance. The cold order was like the hottest flame in a world of snow, causing every person's passion to burn. Zhuemo did not look at the corpse-covered battlefield and charged at the front. A vicious bronze mask hid his face. This emotionless face combined with the cold commands caused him to appear ever more terrifying. His black cape flapped in the wind like dancing black flames. The shouts of the battle generals rose and fell. They were soaked in sweat that evaporated in streams of mist. They waved their strong arms, their eyes wide, as they motivated their troops. Pay attention to the rank shape. Advance, do not fall behind. Keep up. Every member gritted their teeth as they furiously urged on the Mo steeds under them. Their gazes were locked onto the figure at the very front of the battalion with passion in their eyes. The entire army was like a raging metallic flood that pushed forward at an astounding speed in the sky. Seeing their shocking presence, people would believe that any battalion that dared to stand in their way would be flattened immediately. Advance! 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 No one can stop us. Fighting spirit burned in everyone's eyes. The wind howled in their ears. These battle-hungry and brave Mo experts steered their Mo steeds and continued to maintain a perfect offensive formation. Far in the horizon, an enormous battalion entered their field of view. This battalion was more than 10,000 people, it was definitely a big battalion. The distance between the two quickly decreased. At the front, King had no intentions of slowing down. Suddenly, a large sword appeared in King's hand. Everyone's spirit suddenly reached a peak. They all knew what King's action meant. This was the signal for battle. King accelerated. Everyone urged on their Mo steeds to keep up with King's speed. The wind rumbled in their ears, their blood vessels expanded, their blood boiled, the Shen power in their bodies was restless. The enemy hadn't thought that Zhuemo would not consider the great enemy number and still decided to charge. This battalion's presence as it charged was astounding. Even with the battle generals in command, the subordinate members still instinctively panicked. They had never seen such a furious and focused charge. Zhuemo suddenly raised the sword in his hand. The cold and grave shout spread through the entire battlefield. Kill! The people behind him raised their Mo weapons and angrily shouted, Kill! The large sword in Zhuemo's hand seemed to immediately light up. Under the blinding golden light, Zhuemo was like a god of war descending to the mortal world. Zhuemo's sword came down. The blinding golden light entered the enemy battalion and suddenly exploded. The golden sea of light consumed a great number of enemies. Countless drops of golden liquid metal ripped through the enemy battalion, and a large part of the enemy battalion immediately fell down. Another sword appeared on Zhuemo's hand. He raised it again. Kill! He charged at the front towards the enemy battalion. Kill! Everyone shouted angrily and followed closely behind him. The metal flood charged furiously and smashed into the enemy battle formation without any finesse. In that instant, limbs and bodies flew everywhere. No one could stop one of Zhuemo's attacks. Zhuemo was like a powerful bull that charged back and forth in the enemy ranks. With every ball of light he threw out, an empty ar of ground would appear in front of him. The gold flow swords could not withstand the Shen power. Almost the moment they were brought out, they would turn to liquid. Zhuemo was not frugal. The liquid metal contained terrifying power, there were many of them and so they were the best weapons. Zhuemo only felt the surroundings were full of enemies. He did not care. He only threw out the golden balls of light rapidly. The handfuls of golden metal liquid filled with Shen power formed a killing net that was inescapable. The enemies were cleaved down like wheat. But then they charged over from all directions and were cut down again. Zhuemo's eyes were filled with blood. The rhythm of his hands increased and he continued to charge. Charge! A furious and sudden charge. The enemy was not able to muster up an effective resistance. Even though countless people threw themselves furiously at Mo, they were still not able to stop the charge, not even able to delay Mo for a few seconds. Mo's vision suddenly cleared. Mo stilled and then realized. They had penetrated the enemy formation. They won. He led the battalion to quickly turn around and faced the enemy battalion's back. The enemy battle formation was in chaos. They had not managed to turn around. There was a great hole in the battle formation. Inside the hole, corpses were piled up in mountains. That was a path of blood created by Mo's charge. Mo suddenly raised the sword he had just placed in his hand. Kill! The people following behind him had bloodshot eyes. They raised their weapons and shouted angrily, "Kill!" Mo's sword quickly turned bright and the ball of light expanded. It was unprecedentedly bright. The size of the ball of light was 2 times what it had been before. The golden ball of light was like a sun that had fallen from the sky and landed in the enemy's chaotic battle formation. Boom! The blinding light illuminated the world. Terrifying vibrations of power came. Even Mo and the others felt slight stinging pain. When the light dissipated, there was nothing left alive on the ground. "How is it? Are you still managing?" Fei Lei wiped his face as he asked in concern. His entire body had been soaked in sweat a long time ago. Liang Wei panted furiously as he tried to calm his breathing. His throat burned, his mind completely blank. Moments later, he felt as though he had recovered slightly. He squeezed out a smile, still all right. Beside him, the other Yao battle generals panted like fish out of the water. The bodies of Yao could not compare to the Mo. Their physical bodies were weak. This shortcoming was evident in such a sustained and rapid pace of battle. Too fast. This pace. Liang Wei did not believe it. Even in his long journey back when he invaded Xiuzha territory, the pace of battle and the intensity was a fraction of this. The king's horn was only responsible for the flanks and their mission responsibility was much lighter. Many times, they only needed to keep up with the pace of the main troop. But even so, almost all of them were exhausted. The main group that king led was even more terrifying. Their record was destroying 12 battalions in a single day. This battalion was like lightning. No one could stop them. A battalion of 1,000 would not be able to delay them for long. Usually, after the destructive charge, the enemy battalion would have shattered and turned to dust. Later on, King even stopped wasting time on eliminating the survivors. Charge. A furious charge. This kind of speed had never appeared in this history of war. It was not reasonable. Not reasonable at all. But this unreasonable charge was one that no battalion was able to stop. Liang Wei gradually moved from the initial shock and disbelief into acceptance. However, Liang Wei's gaze unconsciously landed on King. King was sitting on the back of the copper-boned nether bird king as though he had never moved. Wasn't King tired? Could one person's power reach such a level? Liang Wei wandered off into his thoughts. Mo jumped off the back of the copper-boned nether bird king. No one had managed to stop them from advancing for 7 days and nights. The morale was at a peak, but Mo knew that their bodies were also completely exhausted. Even Mo's face showed rare traces of exhaustion. "Rest today, we will depart tomorrow morning, there is no need to arrange for patrols," Mo ordered. No one doubted his orders. Everyone took all the time they could to recover their Shen power. The entire camp was silent. Sunshine passed through the ranks, spreading green light. When the green light entered the bodies of those injured, their wounds quickly disappeared. Mo was not idle. He had not used up a lot of energy. The recovery rate of a god-level expert was something that other people couldn't imagine. He took out materials from the ring and started to focus on forging Shen equipment. The Sunshin fire was extremely tame in his hands. This was the first time he was forging after his Shin power had recovered. The feeling was different once again. In the past, he had the god-level cultivation but he had no Shin power. He had been very limited. The feeling of being unrestrained was so good. Under his thoughts, Shin power manifested into complex and fine patterns that rained into the fire. Moments later, a gray Shin equipment was finished. The Shin equipment was not beautiful and refined. It had clean and rough lines as though the item had been casually pieced together from bones. It looked very simple. However, each bone was covered in exquisite patterns that imbued it with beauty. After the first item was finished, Suomo's speed started to accelerate. Later, he was able to forge multiple pieces at the same time. He didn't hold back on any of the high-level nether materials that he had gotten from Shi. He threw them all into the Shin equipment. From fighting in the last few days, he found that the Shin equipment of his subordinates were terrible in quality. Soon, the Shin equipment piled up into a little mountain in front of him. He did not rest and continued to forge when the sun rose from the horizon and the first ray of sunlight broke the darkness. Anemo and the others woke up. They were stunned by the mountain of Shin equipment in front of them. The morning light fell on Suomo's body. Even though he wore a mask, they could still feel his focus and effort. Inside the flickering flame, a piece of Shin equipment was quickly taking form. King had not rested, and had been forging Shin equipment for them the entire night. King. Anemo bit his lips. He was filled with emotion. He only had one thought: even if King told him to go die right now, he would not hesitate. Have everyone put it on, prepare to depart. Suomo's tone was as icy as usual. If they had only followed and revered King because of his terrifying power before, now, in this moment, everyone swore inside that they would forever follow their king. They took off their damaged Shin equipment. After the continuous battles of 7 days and nights, their Shin equipment was covered in dents and damage in many places. After they put on the new Shin equipment, the entire battalion was transformed. These MO experts caressed their Shin equipment and grinned dumbly. High morale, a strong formation, they all gave off great confidence and had strong fighting spirit. In 7 short days, Suomo led them on a string of victories that seemed like a legend. He had transformed this battalion. They were heated, strong, fearless. They had confidence they could defeat any opponent. Their strong belief meant that they would not surrender even in the most hopeless of situations. All hail the king. Chapter 885 The Last Chance. Fei Lei looked at the Shin equipment of an MO and the others with a heated gaze. The people around him had similar gazes. When the crude and simple gray Shin equipment was completely put on, it gave off a strong feeling of murderousness. Like a battalion that had stepped out of hell. Everyone was knowledgeable and they could see the extraordinary nature of the Shin equipment. Also, King had created them. Just that alone meant that they were the symbols of glory. After resting for a night, Liang Wei was much better. He glanced at Fei Lei and said with a smile, "Stop yearning, after we earn some victories, King will also forge Shin equipment for us." Fei Lei reluctantly moved his gaze away. He balled his fist and said strongly, "Yes. We have to obtain a great victory. Outcompete these people." They were envious but they did not feel it was unjust. They had seen the hardship of the main battle force in these past days, and their own fighting was much less. But Liang Wei was not discouraged. After resting, he finally digested the shock of the past few days. After adjusting his mentality, Liang Wei started to shine with his own light. The big fight is still ahead. Liang Wei's eyes narrowed. Haven't you noticed that the enemies we encounter in the last few days have grown fewer? Yes. They're frightened. Who would have expected King to be so strong? Fei Lei said with humor. He had an expression of pride as though he shared in the glory. Liang Wei nodded. Yes. King is strong, and ferocious in the charge, no one can rival him. If I was the enemy, I will not set up obstacles like this again, I will try to gather more battalions, and more power for a final battle with King as soon as possible. Fei Lei shook his head. No one can stop King. His voice was filled with strong confidence. In these past days, he had seen how Zhuai Mo had led the battalion to rush through the enemy battalions. He believed that no one would be able to withstand such a charge. Yes, usually, they will not be able to stop it. However, what if it is 100,000 people? 200,000 people? Liang Wei asked. Fei Lei stopped breathing. He had never seen 100 or 200,000 people before. He could not imagine it. A 10,000-strong battalion already covered the sky. 100,000, 200,000, how terrifying would the scene be? Just thinking about it made his scalp prickle. Is Northern Plains Ice Mansion so strong? Fei Lei asked uncertainty. Liang Wei's expression was serious. That will be their last chance. If they do not do this, they will not even have a last chance. They have been forced to the precipice. Liang Wei's words were correct. Northern Plains Ice Mansion had been forced to the edge of the cliff. Before this, the reason the opposing faction had grown was because people doubted and distrusted the abilities of the new king. The new king was weak, he was not enough to become king. The rumors had been numerous. While people had been secretly fanning the flames from the shadows, it was still the truth that the new king did not have a strong reputation. However, the sudden advance of 7 days and nights had surpassed people's imagination and completely destroyed the rumors that the new king was weak. The new king was weak. No one would think that ever again. The charge had been furious and powerful, shaking all of Nether Realm. This charge, which could be called a miracle, could rival the old Nether King's battle to unite the Nether Realm. The opposing camp quickly collapsed. No matter what, the new king was the appointed successor by the old Nether King. His legitimacy was undoubted. As long as the new king showed the power of a king, the great majority of factions would choose to support him. In this, Northern Plains Ice Mansion was at an absolute disadvantage. Zhuai Mo used this method to prove his strength and defend his status as the Nether King. If Hai Xianbing did not quickly change this, her situation would grow increasingly worse. Northern Plains Ice Mansion would become the rebels that tried to challenge the right of the king. This would cause their supporters to quickly abandon them. The old Nether King had ruled Nether Realm for 10 whole years. His influence was enormous. If it wasn't for the fact that the new king was unfamiliar and no one had heard of him, if the successor had been an MO, the opposing voices would not have been so strong. Only by defeating the new king would Northern Plains Ice Mansion reverse the situation. Should we notify the king? Worry appeared on Fei Lei's face. Liang Wei shook his head. No need, this is most likely King's true intentions. Fei Lei was astounded. Wouldn't this be too much of a risk? King wants to end this in one battle, Liang Wei said gravely. It's too risky. Fei Lei continued to shake his head. I feel that even if the enemy only has 50,000, and the battalions are not too low in quality, we will be in great trouble. Liang Wei did not argue. Fei Lei's speculation was accurate. The two had worked as partners for many years and knew each other well. Fei Lei's talent as a battle general was not outstanding, but he was experienced. He would not have spectacular displays, but he would not make any low-level mistakes. He would not make a mistake in a judgment like this. Based on the power that King showed in these past days, if the enemy had 50,000, they would have a chance to delay them. If the enemy had a well-trained battalion of 100,000, it was likely that they would sink into a bog. If the enemy battalion reached 150,000, they would be at a disadvantage. If the enemy battalion was 200,000, their chances of victory were close to zero. The question now was, could Hai Xianbing gather so many? The battle for the throne of Nether Realm attracted everyone in Nether Realm. This was directly related to their benefits. Under the rule of the old Nether King, they had enjoyed 10 years of peace and Nether Realm had risen to become one of the strongest powers in the world. They treasured the lives they had now. Due to this, when the old Nether King appointed an unknown person as the successor, this was opposed by almost everyone. Yet a few short days passed, and without realizing it, the tide had turned. 7 days and nights, without a moment of rest, a lightning-fast advance. Under the hoofs of the new king, countless battalions wailed, struggled and were stomped into the dust. The new king's unparalleled individual power and courageous style immediately increased the number of his supported. Even the old Nether King had not been so powerful in the past. A new legend was being formed right in front of them. This lightning-fast advance that would enter the history books had never occurred in the history of MO before. The new king was so powerful. The Nether Realm MO innately respected the strong. Countless people were in awe of the new king. The MO were so simple. If you were strong enough, they would fear you and submit to you. All of Nether Realm was discussing the legendary lightning advance. The opposing voices seemed to have disappeared in the span of a night. However, those that were more perceptively warily maintained neutrality. They knew that Hai Xian Bing had been forced to a precipice, a true precipice. Everyone shuddered at the terrifying power of the new king. Even inside Northern Plains Ice Mansion, many people were filled with terror. A hopelessness started to spread. Hai Xian Bing only had one last chance. If she could not stop the new king, after the new king ascended, the first thing he would target would be Northern Plains Ice Mansion. At that time, the authority of the new king would have stabilized, Nether Realm would have submitted, and Hai Xian Bing would die. She needed to prove she was stronger than the new king before the new king reached Nether King Palace. The atmosphere in Northern Plains Ice Mansion was extremely low and tense. In a blink, the situation had reversed. They had originally thought that victory was in their grasp, and suddenly, they were at the end of their road. No one had thought that the new king had resolved the situation in such a way. Simple. Brutal. Without any finesse. A few days ago, they had laughed at the new king for being stupid and not knowing his limits, that he was bashing his head against rocks. When the third day came, no one was able to laugh. They knew just how many battalions they had sent on this path. On the 7th day, each of them only felt terror, unparalleled terror. How could someone be so strong? How could they? The mirages of the battles at the front lines were passed back to Northern Plains Ice Mansion. In the images, that inhuman existence caused each person's soul to tremble. No one was a match for one of his attacks. With the power of a single person, he killed an entire battalion. A battalion of tens of thousands was fragile like paper in front of him. He easily passed through them and defeated them in one blow. Even Hai Xian Bing was silent when she saw this scene. No one knew her hands that were hidden in her sleeves were imperceptibly trembling. The shock she felt was even stronger. An MO who was on the same level as her appeared dim next to the new king. However, she still noticed that MO's attacks were still so sharp and powerful, even more powerful than she had imagined. Only today did she know that an MO had hidden his strength. But no one would look at an MO. No one would feel an MO was powerful. Everyone's gaze would only be attracted by one figure. That new king who was like demon ascending to the mortal world. Hai Xian Bing had seen the strength of the old Nether King before. In her eyes, the old Nether King was unfathomable. You never knew if the power he showed was his limit. What the new king displayed was a completely different kind of presence. An unprecedented dominance. He moved like a colossus, flattening everything in his path. In front of him, you would unconsciously feel as small as an ant, and could not muster any fighting spirit. We have mobilized all battalions, Zhu Nanyu said calmly. Hai Xian Bing recovered a thread of calmness. She looked with admiration at her trusted general. Of everyone, Zhu Nanyu was the calmest. How many people? Her tone was calm. 250,000. Zhu Nanyu's eyes burned. She was also shocked at the new king's power, but when she thought of fighting against such a powerful opponent, she didn't feel any fear, and her blood heated at the idea. Where will the location of the final battle be? Hai Xianbing's terror was pushed away. She was not a normal person, and her tone became determined. Nether King River. Zhu Nanyu said 3 words. Viciousness flashed through Hai Xianbing's eyes. She suddenly stood and said with steel, Nether King River. Good. Then let this battle choose the true Nether King. Everyone stood in unison, the hesitation and fear in their eyes completely disappearing. What replaced those emotions was the belief to die. Final battle. Chapter 886, Presence. Naturally, Northern Plains Ice Mansion could not conceal such a large-scale mobilization of its battalions. Hai Xianbing had not planned to conceal it. At this point, both sides were fighting based on their pure strength. There wasn't any subtlety or stratagem to speak of. At this time, there was no meaning in keeping trump cards. For both sides, at least in this battle, there was no difference between their positions. They were both fighting with their backs to the wall. Hai Xianbing gathered all the battalions that she could move, including all the battalions from Eastern Nether Mansion that had joined her and those factions that had sided with Northern Plains Ice Mansion early on. At this time, many of these factions felt extremely bitter. They had originally thought that the new king would not be able to match Hai Xianbing. Who knew that the new king was more powerful than they had imagined? But at this point, they would not be allowed to retreat. If Hai Xianbing was defeated, they would be killed as well. Due to this, their resolve to fight was unshakable. They were fighting to survive. Hai Xianbing hoped to survive, the remaining members of Eastern Nether Mansion hoped to survive, they hoped to survive. More and more battalions departed for Nether King River. In the history of the MO, never had such a large battle occurred, similarly such a powerful and domineering advance had occurred before. The battalions rushed over from all directions. The mood of Nether Realm was tense. Hai Xianbing had set up the main command tent on the banks of the Nether River. The battalions hurriedly gathered from all over. Nether Lord. A middle-aged person bowed respectfully to Hai Xianbing. Behind him was a well-trained battalion. Each member of this battalion had a verdant green leaf at the center of their foreheads. Their expressions were cold, and gave off a powerful presence. They were the famed Forest Roaming Clan Battalion. The Forest Roaming Clan lived deep in the forest and rarely interacted with the outside world. However, they were great fighters, strong and famous. Hai Xianbing had once saved the life of the previous leader of the Forest Roaming Clan and had a great favor owed to her. No one had known of this relationship. She thought of it as a trump card and had been unwilling to use it. But at this time, she did not hesitate in using this trump card. Thank you. Hai Xianbing showed a gentle smile. Hai Xianbing was tall, possessed a pair of blue eyes, and had fine and white skin. She was authoritative and gave people the feeling of being an icy beauty. When she smiled now, it was like a warm spring wind. This middle-aged person was Man Zhen, and the present leader of the Forest Roaming Clan as well as the son of the past leader. He had the most leaves on his forehead, 3, and he gave off a savage presence like that of a wild beast. Man Zhen was not of many words. After the greeting, he moved to the side. Zhu Nanyu moved forward and started to arrange where the Forest Roaming Clan would set up camp. Hai Xianbing was relieved that the Forest Roaming Clan could arrive in time. Man Zhen had brought along 10,000 of the Forest Roaming Clan elite. This battalion was powerful, and were on par with the strongest battalions of Northern Plains Ice Mansion. Few knew just how many factions Hai Xianbing had recruited and maintained good relationship with over the years. They could only see an endless stream of battalions continue to advance towards Nether King River. The battalions surrounding Hai Xian Bing's tent grew in number. "It's the 74th Battalion." As this was said, the little shop exploded into conversation. This struggle over the control of the Nether Realm had reached the final battle. It attracted the attention of every citizen of Nether Realm. No Nether Realm MO was able to ignore the matter. The word king had a holy meaning among the MO. Without realizing it, people's acceptance of the new king increased. From the conversations in the little shop, it could be seen that there were more supporters of the new king. Hai Xian Bing was a warlord in everyone's eyes, but she did not qualify to be king. If Hai Xian Bing qualified to become king, why hadn't the old Nether King chosen her? This was the phrase that many supporters of the new king used. The supporters of the new king increased by the day. That advance over 7 days and nights was too domineering. So domineering that the ferocious MO admired it. It must be very enjoyable to be led by such a domineering king. This thought could not be pushed from the minds of many people. In comparison, Hai Xian Bing, who had the most support at the start, was looked down on. Maybe Hai Xian Bing had a stronger faction, but she definitely could not be so domineering. As to the identity of the new king, oh, who cared about that now? The old Nether King had also come out of nowhere. Who knew the origins of the old Nether King? Yet the problem now was, if the new king could not make it through Hai Xian Bing's challenge, he could not ascend to the throne. The old Nether King built the Nether King Palace as the symbol of the king's power. Hai Xian Bing hid too deeply. She has so many supporters. Yes. They've surpassed 200,000. Someone quickly gave a precise answer, 220,000. Hiss, everyone inside the little shop inhaled sharply. A battalion of 220,000. That should cover the ground and the sky, appearing endless in view. The people in the little shop found that their poor imaginations were not enough to imagine such a scene. It will surpass 250,000. We just received news that 9 more battalions are nearing Nether King River. The little shop immediately became silent. A long time later, someone murmured, "Is no one helping the new king?" An even longer silence. No one knew. Preparations done. The 2 balls of flame in Gu Wushuang's empty eye sockets flickered. The other 4 turned to look at the Ghost Lord. The Ghost Lord said expressionlessly, "Then depart." "Boss, you will not reconsider?" Si Du couldn't resist asking. Other people might not understand the present situation, but they saw it clearly. Hai Xian Bing was prepared to have a final battle with the new king, but in reality, she lost. Even if she won, she could not ascend to the throne. This was strange, but it was true. If she defeated the new king, she would become the most powerful person in Nether Realm, yet she would not be able to become king. And if the new king beat her, he would become the undoubted king. Presence, Hai Xian Bing did not have the presence of a king. Or rather, Hai Xian Bing's presence lost completely to the new king's presence. In the view of the Tomb 5 ghosts, they had no need to participate in this final battle. The chances the new king could win this final battle was pitifully low. All the power that Hai Xian Bing had worked to accumulate over the years had been invested into this life and death battle. Their intelligence was more accurate. According to their estimates, in the end, Hai Xian Bing would gather a battalion that would surpass 300,000. Even they shuddered at this number. Almost half of the elite fighting forces in Nether Realm had been gathered by Hai Xian Bing. Her power surpassed all of their expectations. Now, it seemed that Jia Man, who had been called the most ambitious, was lacking compared to this woman. However, Hai Xian Bing would have to pay a great price to win against the terrifying power that the new king showed in battle. The expected result was great losses on both sides. This was the best result for the Tomb guards. They believed that the Nether Lord Wuxia also thought the same. They hadn't expected the Ghost Lord would give orders to move out and support the new king. The Tomb Ghost Lord looked expressionlessly at Gu Wushuang and spoke in his unique dissonant voice, "Do you know why King trusted me to guard the 10,000 tombs of the underworld?" "Because I was born here," the Ghost Lord said coolly, "and this is the homeland of King." The Tomb 5 ghosts were dumbstruck. "Depart." The grey Tomb guards moved out of their base. Not one person was left. "It's been too long since I moved. Even my belly is bigger," Yuzha lamented. He had gotten a size bigger. In front of him, his first commander, Ma Wei, stood with a respectful gaze. The entire battalion was prepared to depart. "Ah, Hai Xian Bing, you're so worrisome. You have created such a great fuss, even my old bones have to act," Yuzha muttered his thoughts. "Originally, I hadn't planned on acting, why fight? When was King's judgment ever wrong? All right, let's go. I don't know if we will make it in time. Hai Xian Bing is insane. Does she want the unified Nether Realm to end? If you want to fight to be king, fight, don't be like this. Do you know why King did not act against me? Because while I go with the wind, I have a bottom line." As he murmured to himself, he struggled to climb onto the chariot. "Let's go." The battalion marched. The news that Hai Xian Bing had amassed an army of over 200,000 was proven. The mood of the troop immediately became grave. Liang Wei and an Mo were all skilled battle generals. They knew what this meant. No matter how they calculated, their chances of victory in this battle was minuscule, so minuscule it was insignificant. Regardless of how brave the new king was, how strong his individual power was, he could not win against such a strong army. If King was alone, based on his outstanding individual power, there would be no problems for him to flee safely. But the problem was that this was a final battle from which he could not retreat. They had slowed down. King seemed to be purposefully giving the enemy time to gather. But when the enemy army surpassed 200,000, no one was able to remain calm. They were courageous, but not stupid. The difference in power between the two sides was too great. They knew that the reason that they had been unstoppable these past days was because of King's outstanding abilities. A battalion of 200,000, even King would not have a chance of victory. Liang Wei and an Mo were panicked. Sui Mo did not seem to be in a hurry. Since the battalion stopped, he started to forge. Everyone felt it strange. Why was King forging Shin equipment at such an important time? Even the most powerful Shin equipment, even if it was a Shin device, would be of minimal effect at this time. Yet King ignored the enemy and completely focused on forging. Chapter 887, facing off a golden square box floated silently in the flames and was covered in countless exquisite patterns. The flames disappeared and the gold box flew into Zhuomo's hand. The box was exactly the size of Zhuomo's palm. A warmth came from the square box. Zhuomo felt connected to the box and this made him smile. "Starting from today, you will be called King's Domain." This was the Shin equipment Zhuomo was most satisfied with. Ever since he obtained that Shin device nucleus, he had thought about how to forge a Shin equipment for himself. At present he could be called the top forger but he didn't have his own Shin device, an odd juxtaposition. Normal talismans would immediately collapse in his hands, like the gold crystal sword. An Mo and Liang Wei were panicking like ants set on a fire. They could not understand why King was still forging at such an important time. That dark gold box looked ordinary and had no presence. "King!" An Mo said urgently. Zhuomo nodded towards him and flew onto the copper-boned nether bird king. "We can talk as we travel." An Mo was even more panicked. "King! Hai Xian Bing has gathered a great army of over 300,000. If we go now, that will only be death. Are you afraid of death?" Zhuomo asked bluntly. An Mo stilled. He hadn't thought that King would ask this. He answered seriously, "This subordinate is not afraid of death, but of a death without meaning." "Yes." Suemo nodded. Under the bronze mask, no expression could be seen. He said coolly, "Depart." "King." Anemo panicked. "King, the Tomb Guards and Nether Lord Yuja's battalion is hurrying over. How about waiting for them?" Liang Wei said. "We won't wait. I have limited time," Suemo said coolly and then flew into the sky. Anemo and Liang Wei stared at each other. They couldn't understand what was going on with King. If they went now, they would die without a doubt. 300,000. They didn't believe that King would not be able to understand this. But King still insisted on doing so. Did King have some trump card? They had discussed this before, but no matter how hard they thought, they could not think of any way to defeat an army of 300,000. Anemo gritted his teeth. "At worst, we will die together with King." He got onto his Mo steed after he spoke and then chased after Suemo. "It is so curious," Liang Wei murmured. He was almost sure now that King definitely had other plans. But he could not guess. What were King's other plans? The King's horn immediately moved as well. Along the way, they did not encounter any more obstacles. The path was unusually smooth. Hai Xian Bing had realized the mistake of her previous strategy. Her delay tactic had created the new king's legendary advance, and pushed the new king's reputation to an astounding height. Without any obstacles, Suemo's group moved quickly. There were scouts set up along the road. The mission of these scouts was to keep track of the new king's troops. These scouts were not all Hai Xian Bing's subordinates. All of Nether Realm was paying close attention to this final battle. When Suemo once again led his troops to advance like before, countless factions were shocked. Even an ignorant person knew Hai Xian Bing had set up a great net up ahead. An army of 300,000, that was almost half of Nether Realm's elite battalions. This was a power that made people tremble. No one could win. Using force against force was the stupidest choice. In many people's opinions, the new king should step back, avoid Hai Xian Bing's forces and go around them. Such a large army was all the power that Hai Xian Bing had gathered for many years, but it could not be maintained for long. The new king had the support of the old Nether king. Now that he showed the people of Nether Realm his power and strength, his situation was much better than Hai Xian Bing. The new king only needed to avoid Hai Xian Bing, delay for a while, and Hai Xian Bing's army of 300,000 would quickly collapse. That was the strategic method. But the new king rashly advanced towards Nether King River like a moth to a flame. Almost everyone saw his predicted outcome. Even more people felt that the new king was a brute with courage but no skill. The new king would die. Sorrow spread among the people. After the victorious 7-day advance, they had thought that the new king would be like the old Nether king and be an unrivaled hero. But now, they thought he was only a brute. If the new king died, Hai Xian Bing did not qualify to become king, and the Nether Realm would once again become leaderless. This was the greatest sorrow. For 10 years, they had lived a peaceful life. No battle, their lives were calm, Nether Realm was united. The direction the king's banner pointed was the direction they advanced in. Look at 100 Savage Realm. That place was so chaotic and filled with endless battle. The major factions warred with each other, and people died every day. Low spirits and bewilderment spread in Nether Realm. Was an era truly about to end? Was 10 years of peace all they would have? He's charging towards here. Hai Xian Bing stilled and asked instinctively, did the Tomb Guards and Yusha already arrive? No. Zhu Nanyu's eyes flashed with puzzlement. Strange. Hai Xian Bing pondered this. He doesn't appear like a person without brains. Zhu Nanyu didn't speak but she agreed. How could a person that forced them to such a state, and had grabbed the only chance to resolve the situation when he was surrounded by enemies by a person without brains. It was the opposite. Zhu Nanyu saw decisiveness, intelligence, bravery and hardiness from that person. She had followed Hai Xian Bing from childhood and they were like sisters. This bond was the only reason she was willing to be enemies with such a person. The other definitely had other plans. He has to have other plans. Hai Xian Bing felt uneasy, like an invisible pressure weighing on her mind. She could not understand the enemy's actions at all. Maybe there are spies? Zhu Nanyu reminded. You are right. Hai Xian Bing was startled. You have to prepare for that. Zhu Nanyu looked in shock at Hai Xian Bing. She had never seen the Nether Lord so panic before. In her mind, the Nether Lord was always calm and composed. Now, she was panicking just because of one poorly understood move that the enemy had made. The pressure the enemy gave the Nether Lord was so strong. The shock that Zhu Nanyu felt could be imagined. The scouts reported at a rapid pace, departing and landing constantly, to report of the enemy's position. Report. The enemy is estimated to be a day's travel away. Report. The enemy is accelerating. Estimated arrival is in 12 hours. Report. 4 hours. As the enemy came closer to Nether King River, the atmosphere suddenly grew tense. The pressure of the impending battle caused the entire army to tense. Everyone became nervous. Even those battle generals that had been through hundreds of battles had stern faces and threads of worry. The other was clearly only 2 battalions, and not even 10,000 people. But for some reason, an invisible yet great pressure was on each person's mind. The other's unusual action caused each person's nerves to be on edge. The enemy was not unknown. He had proven his strength. The more unusual it was, the more people were wary. The army of 300,000 prepared to face a great enemy. The sounds gradually disappeared. They unconsciously closed their mouths. They instinctively gripped their weapons, and the mood was unusually nervous and strict. When a group of black dots appeared in the distance, everyone's hearts jumped. They've come. The army shifted and the roar of the battle generals came in waves. Be alert. Prepare to fight. Be prepared, do not slack off at the crucial time. The little black dots arrived with a strangely quick speed. In a blink, they felt their visions darken and the enemy was already close to them. The enemy were clearly not even 10,000 in number, but when they advanced at such a high speed, it made people feel as though there were tens of thousands roaring and charging at them. Everyone's hearts uncontrollably shook. Was this the flood of metal that no one could stop for 7 days and nights? Seeing the enemy about to step into their attack range, every battle general's expression became stern and nervous. They waited to attack as the other stepped into their attack range. The enemy suddenly stopped. Stopped without any warning. From a fast charge to a sudden stop. There was no transition between the two states and it was so uncomfortable that people wanted to spit blood. They finally saw the person at the front of the group. Zhuemo looked coldly at the enemies in front of him. In reality, this was the first time he saw a battalion of 300,000 gathered together. The battalions were packed together and stretched into the distance. It caused people to feel weak and powerless. But Zhuemo didn't feel this way. He sat motionlessly on the back of the copper-boned Nether Bird King. Even his gaze didn't change. It was still cold and emotionless. Hai Xian Bing. The cold and aloof voice was clear in each person's ears. Compared to the previous panic, Hai Xian Bing calmed down now. She walked out fearlessly. Completely outfitted in armor, Hai Xian Bing seemed to have a martial bearing. At this time, she finally showed the glory and mannerism of a Nether Lord. She held a long blue sword, her long hair flying in the wind. Her beautiful features did not seem to be of the mortal realm. The decisiveness and intelligence she showed made people trust her. She did not dodge Suomo's gaze, but she did not want to verbally spar with Suomo. She said, "No need to waste words. Let's fight." Hai Xianbing's eyes suddenly gave off a sharp light. She raised the long sword in her hand, her murderous deep shout echoing in the air, "In the name of Nether Realm." At this time, Hai Xianbing shone like a star. In the name of Nether Realm. Everyone was motivated by her. All of the nervousness disappeared in this moment. Their blood boiled and their spirits rose. The army of 300,000 roared together, the waves of sound filling the surroundings. Hai Xianbing suddenly had a feeling, the matter was done. The morale of the battalions had reached a peak. When the morale of 300,000 rose, no one would be able to reverse all this. The person wearing the bronze mask on the other side suddenly stood up. He stood on the back of the copper-boned Nether Bird King as though he was standing above the clouds. He looked down from high up. He seemed to be looking at all life below. The cold gaze was filled with disdain. The voice was not loud but could be heard over the entire field. The tsunami of cheers and shouts suddenly stopped. "You, how do you qualify to invoke the name of the Nether Realm?" Chapter 888, When did I allow you to use the name of Nether Realm? The cold words were without any emotion. Yet these words were like a basin of icy cold water that was poured over the 300,000. The fire that had just started to burn in their minds were immediately extinguished. The person wearing the mask looked differently at them as though they were just ants in his eyes. Terrible. Many people's expressions became ugly. Of them, the great majority of them had been famed for many years. When had they been dismissed like this before? They unconsciously balled their fists, their tendons bulging. Suomo's next words caused these experts that felt humiliated to lose their mind. "When did I allow you to use the name of Nether Realm?" The cold and aloof tone seemed to be describing an ordinary matter. However, the undisguised dominance and imperiousness was like a wild and sharp cold wind that swept across everyone's minds. "Who do you think you are?" A sudden shout came from the army. A figure like that of a wild beast suddenly charged like lightning towards Suomo in the sky. A powerful presence that was like a raging wave swept towards Suomo Xiaoji. One of Hai Xianbing's commanders, and the strongest of the 4 commanders of Northern Plains Ice Mansion. Of all the commanders in Northern Plains Ice Mansion, he was an extreme outlier. When people reached such a level of strength, there were rarely any that did not know how to lead battle formations, it was just a matter of skill level. Xiaoji didn't understand any battle formations. He was obsessed with personal strength, but due to this, his individual strength was powerful and only second to Hai Xianbing in Northern Plains Ice Mansion. He had a fiery temper and wasn't afraid of anything. Suomo's words immediately set him off. Boom! The furious killing energy swept out. Midair, the air around Xiaoji twisted. His body suddenly swelled and black smoke rose out of his body. An astounding presence quickly strengthened rapidly in the black smoke. There seemed to be a terrifying monster that was being formed inside the black smoke. Soon, an enormous monster appeared in people's view. Hiss! Inhales of shock came in unison from the 300,000. This monster was too large. It stood in the air like a mountain. Just the pressure from the massive size was enough for people to lose their spirit. The monster was covered in rich and deep-colored tattoos. Its eyes were like 2 bottomless black holes. Its 4 limbs were short but strong, its body slightly arched. Its mouth was slightly open, and each fang was shrouded in thick black smoke. Its tail was over 10 li long. When it moved in the air, it caused twisters. Anmo's expression changed slightly. When this nether beast appeared, it gave him a strong feeling of danger. Xiaoji was not this strong. This was Anmo's first reaction. The power that Xiaoji showed right now matched his. Soon, Anmo's expression completely changed. The words flashed through his mind. A kamikaze warrior. Not good. If an expert of this level disregarded injury and death, the danger they posed would become terrifying. He hadn't thought that Xiaoji was willing to die for Hai Xian Bing. This woman. An Mo gritted his teeth and was about to move forward. Of King's subordinates, he was the only one that was a match for Xiaoji. An Mo's eyes flashed with fire. As though he knew what an Mo was thinking, Sui Mo raised an arm. An Mo noticed King's signal and stilled. He had followed King for these few weeks and was familiar with King's signals. There was only one meaning of this signal. King was indicating that an Mo should not move forward. What did King want to do? King was slightly puzzled. Did King want to personally fight? He trusted that King would not have a problem facing Xiaoji based on the power that King had shown. However, if King took a long time with just Xiaoji, then the presence that King had accumulated would disappear. What was most important right now was presence. But an Mo was disciplined and he knew from the experience of the past days that King was definitely not a rash person. Many of King's seemingly illogical choices and decisions would create a fantastical result in the end. An Mo knew that the results that seemed to be miracles could not be just explained by luck. He stopped moving and suppressed his urgency. He looked curiously at King. He wanted to know how King would defeat this nether beast. Zhu Nanyu looked at the enormous beast in the sky and she was in slightly low spirits. The Netherlord's move was extremely tricky. The new king had accumulated his presence from the 7-day advance and his presence was at a peak. Using Xiaoji against an Mo or the new king would be able to blunt the enemy presence. Zhu Nanyu was almost sure that the Netherlord didn't even hope that Xiaoji would defeat the other. She only asked that Xiaoji would reduce the other's presence by delaying the new king or an Mo. If the other's presence stopped, their momentum would decrease and they could be ground to death by the 300,000 army. For this delay, the Nether King even sacrificed such a strong expert. This was like playing chess. While Zhu Nanyu felt that 300,000 was enough, but facing the unfathomable and mysterious new king, the Netherlord was still cautious. In order to increase the chances of victory, she could pay any price. The pressure this person gave the Netherlord was too great. Zhu Nanyu and Xiaoji were not close but they were both commanders of Northern Plains Ice Mansion. They were usually on good terms. Thinking that she would never see Xiaoji again, her spirits fell. But she quickly threw these emotions to the back of her mind and her gaze became calm again. Xiaoji was enough to make trouble for the enemy. Sui Mo's gaze was as cold as usual. The enormous beast in front of him did not cause his gaze to change. He looked on with indifference. He treated the enormous beast just as he had the 300,000 strong army. What no one knew was that Sui Mo's lips was curved into a cold smile behind his mask. He was too familiar with the desolate and vast presence that the enormous beast gave off. A wasteland beast. This enormous beast wasn't some nether beast, it was a wasteland beast. While its appearance was completely different compared to the wasteland beasts Sui Mo's archaic wasteland sacrificial art summoned, their presences were similar. What was different was this wasteland beast had a tinge of death to it. This was a wasteland beast that had died. Such a pity. Sui Mo felt great pity. This wasteland beast still had such presence after death. How ferocious would it have been when it was alive? Roar! The nether wasteland beast suddenly opened its mouth and howled. A presence that caused people to tremble exploded. It crouched slightly, its bottomless eyes stared at Sui Mo and it appeared to prepare to pounce. Sui Mo's gaze turned cold. He didn't even fear a true wasteland beast right now, much less a dead wasteland beast. The other had used Nethershan power to refine this wasteland beast. However, Sui Mo saw with a glance that the refinement was not complete. This was expected. The wasteland beast had been the king of all ancient beasts. Even if it was dead, someone that was not god level would not be able to refine it completely. A wasteland beast that was not completely forged still had remnants of their instincts from their life. These instincts were the greatest enemy to those that tried to forge it. This person that rushed out was burning Shen power to suppress the remaining instincts of the wasteland beast. Pity, he underestimated the instincts of a wasteland beast. Archaic wasteland sacrificial art moved on his fingertips. However, this time, what flickered on his fingers were threads of Shen power. A dot of dim light flew out of Zhuomo's fingertip and entered the body of the wasteland beast. The wasteland beast's body was so large. Compared to the enormous body, the speck of light was insignificant and seemed absurd. Did the new Nether King think to defeat such a powerful and big entity using that little bit of Shen power? Was his mind normal? In order to face this terrifying monstrosity, one needed to use power that could upend the seas and tear down mountains. What was that rice-sized grain of light? Many people had dismissive expressions. However, in the sky, Hai Xian Bing's heart suddenly rose. A bad feeling rose from her mind. She was the closest, yet she did not understand what the mask-wearing person had constructed. A move that even she could not understand. Her heart sank slightly, but she did not act. Xiaoji's intelligence was not good, but his fighting strength was undoubted. Yet the next scene caused everyone to lose their ability to speak. They gaped with wide eyes, their expressions frozen on their faces. The mountainous wasteland beast trembled and spasmed violently. Threads of black smoke rose from its body. It trembled like dice, and ripples visible to the naked eye formed in the air. Arr. Angry howls that carried great pain spread like blasts of wind. The ripples spread even faster. They contained great power and swept the entire battle formation. The Mo who were slightly weaker felt their heads turn dizzy and their bodies wavered. This awoke them out of their astonishment. They were astounded. What was happening? Ah! Pain screams suddenly came out of the wasteland beast. The faces of the people of Northern Plains Ice Mansion changed. Xiaoji. This was Xiaoji's voice. Xiaoji's wailing and screaming was filled with pain as though he was enduring great torture. Soon, the screams weakened and then stopped. The mountainous beast stopped shaking. Tiny light suddenly glimmered in the bottomless black eyes. It suddenly roared, its four limbs pushing off to dive towards Mo Boom. The enormous body was like the attack of thunder. The feeling of momentum it produced was terrifying. It was like a mountain coming down that nothing could stop. King, careful! An Mo exclaimed. His expression changed drastically. This nether beast was faster than he imagined. Mo did not seem to hear the warning. His body did not move. The wasteland beast seemed to appear out of thin air in front of him. Such an enormous thing appearing without any warning caused people's hearts to stop beating. It was so close to Mo. Its eyes were only 3 zhang away from Mo Boom. The sound of a sonic boom and the savage wind smashed towards Mo. The upright figure on the back of the copper-boned nether bird king did not move. Only that snowy white hair was blown up by the savage wave of air. In front of the wasteland beast's mountainous body, Mo was minuscule. Suddenly, the wasteland beast bowed. That man that seemed to be carved from stone finally moved. He raised his foot and stepped onto the nose of the wasteland beast. The nose of the wasteland beast was like a wide mountain path leading to its head. Walking along the wasteland beast's nose was like walking along a mountain path. He moved upwards. The battlefield was silent, but communicated an intimidating power. Complete silence. When he walked onto the top of the wasteland beast's head and stopped, he turned and looked towards the battalion of 300,000. The crouched wasteland beast also stood up at the same time. The 300,000-strong battalion suddenly grew smaller and smaller in his eyes. The wasteland beast took him higher. His vision was vaster than it had ever been. The strong wind in the air blew his snowy white hair about. He looked down on the enemies. The bronze mask was still cold and indifferent, just like the voice that echoed in the air. When did I permit you to use the name of Nether Realm? Chapter 889, Absolute Power. A deathly silence. No one spoke. The army of 300,000 were like 300,000 wooden puppets. They couldn't make any sound at all. They looked into the sky, that seemingly untouchable figure that stood upright, his white hair blowing in the wind. Suddenly, people had a feeling. The wasteland beast was tamed under his heel. Was like the world under his heel. The cold and indifferent voice came from that faraway place and spread through all of Nether Realm. This final battle would determine the future of Nether Realm and was watched by all of the people in Nether Realm. Countless people were transmitting what was happening here as mirages. Hai Xian Bing, who had thought she had victory in her grasp, had not removed these people. She wanted these people to watch how the glorious new king would fall. She wanted to defeat the new king in front of all of Nether Realm. Only then could she ascend to the throne. Hai Xian Bing had no time to regret it. She was also shocked by everything that had happened. That pair of ocean blue eyes stared woodenly out of her face. Only until that imperious voice concluded as though he was giving judgment. I am the Nether King. Only I, in all of Nether Realm, can use the name of Nether Realm. Do not qualify. The voice held no warmth. Even now, his voice did not rise. There was no anger, no explosiveness, no emotion. But this emotionless voice caused people to feel terrified. Compared to the cold voice that did not rise, the presence of the man atop the wasteland beast started to rise. For some reason, everyone felt relieved. That strange terror they felt lessened greatly. Were they finally going to start to fight? Good. At worst, they would die. They completely didn't realize the change in their mentality. Only a few noticed this change. Their expressions became terrible. The presence that the new king had created was so stunning that the confidence and morale of their side had decreased greatly. Originally, no matter what the new king did, it should not have happened. But Xiaoji's explosive rush seemed to have been planned and had been flipped to build another stage for the new king. But everyone knew that this had not been planned beforehand. Even such a terrifying beast was prostrated under the feet of the new king. They had seen the entire process with their own eyes. The unfathomable presence of the king left an indomitable imprint on their minds. Was this the presence of a king? In the past, they didn't believe it. They thought that if they could use mass numbers to challenge and defeat the so-called king. But after seeing this scene, their resolve wavered. Zhu Nanyu shouted, "Be alert, we have 300,000 people." This shout was like a swat to the head that caused many to regain clarity. Yes. They were 300,000. No matter how strong he was. Even if he had the enormous beast. So what? 300,000. This was a force that was enough to change all of Nether Realm. How could it fail against one person? How was it possible? Their faces glowed again, their spirits recovering. The miracle in front of them, this legend, this unfathomably deep new king was only to add to the significance of their achievement. However, their expressions soon became serious. Such astounding presence. The new king's presence surpassed the presence of Xiaoji back when he had been burning Shen power. This was not strange. In everyone's minds, the new king's individual power was just below the old Nether King. He was a man that created the miracle of the 7-day charge by his own power. Yet what shocked them was that his presence was still rising. Rising at an astounding speed. He was like a fire burning hotter and brighter. Ripples swept outwards like surging waves. Everywhere they passed, people's minds trembled. They could not avoid the terrifying presence. His presence continued to rise. Continued to rise. Seriousness became fear, fear became terror. They looked up at the figure up high. They could not see clearly. The powerful presence that the new king released caused the air around him to twist violently. There seemed to be complex turbulent flows around him surging chaotically. What was even more astonishing was the area of turbulence was still expanding. Ar! The wasteland beast suddenly gave an angry howl. Boom, a muffled sound came through the air. Its mountainous body started to become blurry and twisted. A wave of air carrying powerful presence spread into the surroundings with the wasteland beast as the center. As the two presences mixed together, the world seemed to lose color. The 300,000 people paled. What was even more inconceivable was that the presence of the man on top of the wasteland beast was still rising and showed no signs of slowing. This was impossible. Even a person as calm as Zhu Nanyu could not maintain her composure. She looked in shock at the sky. This is impossible. She murmured. In the sky, the presence given off by that figure surpassed the limits of a mortal. In this moment, she had a feeling that what was in the sky was not a person, but a burning sun. Was this his true power? How could the power of a mortal reach this level? There were no clouds in the sky, but the sky slowly darkened. Night descended. Crack, crack, crack. The ground cracked. The cracks started to stretch out like wounds in the earth. Even hard granite was like soft biscuits that easily cracked. In a blink, the ground was covered in a spiderweb of cracks. That person's presence was still rising. The terrifying presence weighed on people's minds like a lead cloud. Each person found that they were gradually losing control of their body. Slight numbness was spreading through their bodies. Terror and hopelessness uncontrollably spread through their minds. Only the true experts knew that their bodies were not being controlled. The other's presence was so powerful that their bodies were instinctively protecting themselves. This kind of instinctive self-protection was not in their control. While they understood the cause, they were not relieved at all, but horrified. Just the presence being released was so stunning, then how strong was he? Was there a person this strong in the world? Mo was stunned. Waves rippled through his heart. King was so powerful. King hadn't even used a fraction of his strength in the 7-day miracle that people discussed so much. This conclusion caused Mo to become slightly bewildered. Truthfully, even he was filled with pride at the incomprehensible 7-day advance. In his opinion, this was a miracle that could not be copied. It would never appear again. But when he saw King today, he found how laughable his pride was. He finally learned what King's trump card was. King's trump card was his unimaginable and absolute power. This was King's trump card. King had never thought of using any schemes to resolve Hai Xian Bing's rebellion. From the start, King had decided to use absolute power to crush her. No one had thought of it. Mo had not thought of it. No one could imagine that one person's strength could suppress 300,000. They had never heard of this before. But this scene that almost was impossible was happening right in front of them. Mo looked dumbly at the man giving off the terrifying presence in the sky. Was this King? The ground was vibrating constantly as though there was a terrifying monster underground that was moving. Suddenly, pop, a stone the size of a fist broke free of the restraints of gravity and slowly floated upwards. It set off a chain reaction. Pieces of rock broke free of the ground and floated towards the sky. Everyone looked at the strange and intimidating scene. The presence of the man on top of the wasteland beast was still rising. Without any signs of slowing down. They only felt terror. Other than terror, there was nothing else. Even Hai Xian Bing. The vast and endless presence were like relentless waves that spread outwards. 100 li, 1,000 li. Until it covered this entire Jie. At this time, the Nether King River that was at the center seemed to be approaching an apocalyptic level event. Fragments of stone floated in the air like stars. The Nether King River had stopped flowing and was completely solidified. The restless air twisted everything as though it was the center of a whirlwind. Everything within 100 li was completely blurry. Only that cold bronze mask, those indifferent eyes of a deity, were so clear that they reached people's minds. Suemo opened his hand. There was a square golden box lying in his hand. King's Domain. Suemo threw King's Domain into the air. King's Domain exploded in a ball of light. The world suddenly calmed down. The whirlwind disappeared, the terrifying presence disappeared, the twisted ripples disappeared. Everyone was situated in the middle of an endless galaxy shin-glyphs. All kinds of shin-glyphs of different colors, an ocean that was endless. At the center of this shin-glyph sea, an enormous golden sun slowly revolved. The sun's surface spat out thick golden flames in a spectacular show. This shin-glyph galaxy was so vast that the 300,000 people within it were still small. Silence, a deathly silence. Hai Xianbing's face was ashen and bloodless. She suddenly thought of the battle of the Central Plains from the rumors, God level. The legendary God level. She looked dazedly at this vast and hope-crushing shin-glyph galaxy. She suddenly found her ambition was laughable. Her struggles, her plans, all the effort she put in. In front of the other's absolute power, all of this became the best performance stage, the greatest stepping stone, the magnificent background for the legend of the new king. Her body trembled violently. Her pride cut at her heart and to her bones. Since she had already failed, then she would fail completely. Hai Xianbing suddenly raised her face and showed a sorrowful smile. She suddenly leapt towards the figure on top of the wasteland beast. Chapter 890, Hai Xianbing's Death. Suemo looked indifferently at the charging Hai Xianbing. He was in a strange state at the moment. He felt as if he was a completely different person. He seemed to be possessed. His mind was unusually calm as though nothing in the world could affect him. He did not panic facing Hai Xianbing's final attack before her death. In the 10 years he wandered the endless void, he had accumulated 10 whole years of ideas and reflection. When his Shin power recovered, the accumulation of the 10 years was like a volcano that had waited a long time and then erupted. He was more powerful now than the Tian Huan chief elder had been back then. Also, he had forged a top Shin device like King's Domain. The chief elder's Shin-glyph C had given Suemo great inspiration. Suemo was also skilled in Shin-glyphs as well. In the past, Chief Elder had been more skilled than he was, but now, Suemo was undoubtedly the most skilled in Shin-glyphs. In the 10 years of exploring the endless void, he had seen countless Shin-glyphs, more than Chief Elder had. This Shin-glyph galaxy was a step beyond Chief Elder's Shin-glyph sea. This place was completely made from Shin-glyphs, including the Chief Elder's Shin-glyphs, and the glyphs from the endless void. There were no seal scripts. Also, Suemo had a far more heterogeneous knowledge than Chief Elder. For example, his Shin power was the Sun Shin methodology, one of the strongest Shin methodologies of the ancient era. King's Domain combined the best of all he learned. Hai Xianbing was blocked. The one that stopped her was the Black Gold Seal Soldier. At this time, the Black Gold Seal Soldier was completely transformed. His body flashed with armor made from Shin-glyphs, as though he was wearing a grand costume. These Shin-glyphs flashed with different colors, some deep blue, some burning red, and some golden yellow. All kinds of light mixed. However, it was not chaotic, but indescribably balanced and beautiful. Under the watchful eyes of hundreds of thousands of spectators, the Black Gold Seal Soldier put in great effort. Born to battle. The authoritative and deep shout was like an ancient war god. His eyes flashed with dark gold light that were intimidating and murderous. His arms were brought together, his fists crossed. The right fist was wrapped by an icy blue shin-glyph while the left fist was wrapped in a burning red shin-glyph. When the two smashed together, a great and blinding light was created. The shattered icy blue and burning red fragments smashed together like shards of ice and sparks of fire. Whoosh! The two streams of fragments twisted together like two dragons of blue and red that twisted together and leapt towards Hai Xian Bing. Hai Xian Bing did not dodge. Viciousness flashed through her eyes. A layer of blue light lit up on the blue sword in her hand. She opened her hand and the long sword howled towards the red and blue fragments. Her body suddenly disappeared from the air, and immediately appeared at the side of the black gold seal soldier. A glint of cunning flashed through the eyes of the black gold seal soldier. Four shin-glyphs appeared around Hai Xian Bing the moment she had appeared. The light of the four shin-glyphs flowed with red, yellow, green, and white rays of light. Each shone on Hai Xian Bing. Hai Xian Bing felt her body was trapped in a bog. The black gold seal soldier was cunning to start with. After facing the hardships of the past 10 years, he had become the most sensitive of the little ones towards openings and opportunities in battle. Without any hesitation, he charged towards Hai Xian Bing. The shin-glyph galaxy was mentally connected to Zuimo. The black gold seal soldier was like a fish in water in this space. The strength of all of his skills multiplied. He appeared next to Hai Xian Bing, raising his fists to throw towards Hai Xian Bing. The shin-glyphs on his fists and arm suddenly lit up with blinding light. There seemed to be a flowing ball of light that shot towards Hai Xian Bing. Hai Xian Bing had the resolve to die and did not dodge. The long sword in her hand pointed in the direction of black gold seal soldier's fist of light. A rice-sized grain of icy blue light lit up at the tip of Hai Xian Bing's sword. The blue light suddenly exploded in front of the black gold seal soldier. An extremely cold presence swept out like a windstorm. The black gold seal soldier's expression changed slightly. His charging body twisted without warning and disappeared from his spot. Across the battlefield blue snowflakes gently floated down. The hexagonal blue snowflakes added a contrasting fragility to the shin-glyph galaxy. The icy blue snowflakes spread rapidly through the shin-glyph galaxy. Hai Xian Bing stood with her sword, her long hair blowing in the wind, as the snowflakes fell around her. Her gaze was as determined as iron as she channeled shin power into her sword. The wind and snow became even stronger. Under her feet, glowing ice silently spread outwards. In a blink, 1,000 li was sealed in ice. The shin-glyphs that were sealed by ice were dim. The flames of hope once again lit up in the eyes of many people. They saw the hope of victory again from Hai Xian Bing's display of power. The black gold seal soldier was angry. He had actually made a mistake in front of so many people. The proud black gold seal soldier howled. The shin-glyph that covered his chest suddenly lit up with red light. At the center of the shin-glyph galaxy, that enormous sun that spat out red tongue of fire which shot out a ruler straight line of fire. The burning red line of fire was the thickness of an arm and as fast as lightning. It immediately reached the black gold seal soldier and accurately struck the shin-glyph at the center of his chest. The line of fire entered the shin-glyph. Viciousness flashed through the black gold seal soldier's eyes. His body bowed slightly, his eyes extremely wide as his cheeks puffed out. Whoosh! The black gold seal soldier spewed forth a stream of red flames. When the red flames landed on the ground, the glacial ice layer quickly melted. The fire inside the black gold seal soldier's stomach seemed to stream endlessly. He maintained his posture as he continued to breathe fire out of his mouth. The bright red flames were like a moving snake which moved as it pleased along the ice layer. The sound of the flames burning masked all other sounds. The endless black void of the sky, the shin-glyph ocean of stars, the wall of red flames that burned along the ice, the icy blue snowflakes that hadn't even fallen before they were consumed by the flames. These flowing flames did not show any signs of weakening. Hai Xingbing had a calm expression, but she was dispirited inside. She, a nether lord, couldn't even defeat a seal soldier. And she had actually dared to challenge him for the throne. How laughable was this? That dot of cold light had been the ice plains Shen breath that she had harvested from the depths of the northern ice desolate plains. That Shen breath had been an entity of extreme cold. She had spent great effort in forging it, and had thought it could seal all things. She hadn't expected. Was the difference between God level and non-God level so great? She felt extremely bitter. The bright red flames were domineering and burning. It was Shen fire of higher quality than her ice plains Shen breath. The other seal soldier had only Shen fire and the power of the Shen glyphs to stop the ice plains ice breath. An attack that she was had to burn her Shen power to release. She accepted her complete defeat. She was suppressed in all aspects. The vast and burning presence that mask-wearing man had been exuding disappeared. His presence, the presence of the wasteland beast, they merged into one with this Shen glyph galaxy. He was nowhere, but seemed to be everywhere. Hai Xianbing felt unspeakably uncomfortable. His presence before had furiously grown as though there was no end. That had stunned her. Now, this omnipresent feeling did not make her feel terror but defeated. When there was a large difference, you would be shocked. But when there was such a great difference, it was not so shocking. The other used countless Shen glyphs to transform a Jie. The difference in cultivation was exposed in front of her. The difference in Shen power would not have caused her to lose her resolve. She felt hopeless because of the difference in cultivation. Her burning Shen power continued to flow into her sword. However, the rate that the ice plains spread could not keep up with the speed the other Shen fire flowed. The bright red flames were as unstoppable as a prairie fire. She really was a failure. She didn't even have the ability to battle with the enemy. When her last thread of Shen power was used up, the ice plains suddenly stopped expanding and were immediately consumed by the flames. A flower of ice appeared at Hai Xianbing's forehead. In a blink, the frost consumed her body. She turned into a lifelike statue of ice. Crack, crack, crack. Countless cracks appeared on the ice statue like a spiderweb. Snap. The ice statue completely shattered into pieces of ice and were completely consumed by the burning fire that came. A nether lord, the leader of the 300,000 strong army, Hai Xianbing disappeared completely from the world like this. So simply, so easily. From beginning to end, the new king did not act. Endless darkness, the Shen glyph galaxy, the astounding great presence of the enormous sun. The entire Jie was taken over. Everyone that happened was so unrealistic as though it was a dream. Surrender or die. The cold voice echoed in every person's minds. There was no pride, no happiness, just the same indifferent calmness. Bam, someone's MO weapon landed on the ground. It caused a chain reaction as the sound of MO weapons being thrown away clattered out. After seeing Hai Xianbing's death, their last bit of spirit to resolve was completely shattered. Zhu Nanyu's face was covered in tears, but she did not shout something like revenge for the Nether Lord. She knew that resisting now would have no meaning except for wasting lives. Beside her, all of the commanders of Northern Plain Ice Mansion had ashen faces. They knew, everything was finished. They silently threw away the MO weapons in their hands. No one could stop this person. He alone could kill all of them because he alone could destroy this Jie. But for some reason, even they, while they felt sad, also felt relieved of a great burden. They finally did not have to be enemies against him. This battle caused the reputation of the new king to reach a peak and surpass the old Nether king. Almost all of Nether Realm had seen this astounding battle. No one doubted the new king's qualifications to ascend to the throne. Anyone able to defeat an army of 300,000 alone qualified. After a short silence, the Nether Realm boiled and descended into an unprecedented celebration. God level. Their king was God level. The only God level in the world. Their king was the strongest of the world. All of their unrest was swept away, all of their fear disappeared. The Battle of the Central Plains had shown people how powerful God level was. However, in that battle, the chief elder of Tianhuan that had just entered God level had died, and up until now, no new God level had appeared. But now, the Nether King was the first to possess a God level, their king. People started to dream. The Nether Realm would become more prosperous under the leadership of the new king. All the leaders of Nether Realm's various factions were traveling day and night towards Nether King Palace to pay homage to the new king, to be present when he ascended to the throne, and to personally swear their fealty. Countless experts gathered towards Nether King Palace. In the minds of the people of Nether Realm, King was fated to become a legend. Was there anything more exciting than following a ruler like this? The Nether Realm that had been showing signs unrest, internal discord, and approaching civil war was renewed, and filled with vitality. Chapter 891, New King, Old King. After finally completely what he had promised, Suemo sighed in relief. He hadn't worried too much about succeeding to the throne. With his God-level cultivation, he was already one of the strongest in the world. The matter had gone smoother than he had expected. He had considered what he would do in the worst-case scenario. If he could not get the army of 300,000 to submit, he would lock the entire Jia. Of course, that was the worst-case scenario. This was because these 300,000 were the elite of Nether Realm. If he killed them all, Nether Realm would be greatly weakened. Suemo did not have anything against killing them, but he did not kill needlessly. Their surrender was the best result, it left the Nether Realm's strength intact. This result was so good it was unexpected. He had to consider the next step. Other than an Mo, Liang Wei, and the others, no one knew his status as the king of Mo Cloud Sea. He realized that this was a great opportunity. Right now, he had not thought of how to use this secret. Suddenly, the cheers outside interrupted his thoughts. His mind moved, and everything happening outside appeared in his mind. There were numerous people gathered on both sides of the road. The crowd moved along the road and stretched out endlessly. Where the chariot passed, people fell to their knees. The calls of "All Hail the King" rose up constantly. An Mo and the battalion that accompanied him stood upright with proud expressions. Suemo was slightly shocked. Even in Mo Cloud Sea, he would not be greeted with such a grandiose parade, even as founder of Mo Cloud Sea. This was due to the difference in the two cultures. The main members of Mo Cloud Sea were Xiuzha. Xiuzha usually gathered in sects, and meaning even at the best of times they were not truly united. As a result, Xiuzha did not have a king. For the Mo, they were at their most prosperous and strongest when a powerful king appeared. In their hearts, the position of king was sacred. For the majority of Mo, a king was their hope, he was the person that they could follow with their life. The new king's powerful display caused all of Nether Realm to be filled with optimism towards the future. Whenever a strong king appeared among the Mo, it was usually when the Mo were the strongest. When the troops reached the perimeter of Nether King Palace, the palace was surrounded by an ocean of people. The leaders of all the factions from all over Nether Realm, big or small, had gathered here. They became excited when they saw the troops of the new king. Suemo stepped off of the chariot. The endless sea of people that stretched out before him was shocking. The tsunami of cheers caused every person to uncontrollably tremble. Mo and the others were extremely excited. They were filled with pride and glory at seeing such a scene. "All hail the king!" Someone shouted. More and more people raised their arms and shouted. The shouts gathered into a flood. Even the ground trembled. "All hail the king! All hail the king!" People shouted at the top of their lungs as though they didn't know exhaustion. Suemo stood on the chariot. Still wearing the bronze mask, he seemed to be the moon surrounded by the stars and brilliant in his light. 1. He looked around. His gaze swept across people's faces. He saw their hopes towards the future, he saw their reverence of him, he saw the pride and excitement on their faces. Suddenly, something seemed to weigh heavily on his heart. Starting today, he would lead them, he would become their king. He took a breath and swore, in the name of Nether King, I will protect this land. Only half of Shi's body remained. He heard Zhuomo's oath. He knew that Zhuomo was making a promise to him. Shi showed an ugly smile. He let go of his last worry. There was only half of his body left. Turning his head, he looked at the empty and large hall. He said to himself, let us do one last thing. Shi's presence suddenly erupted. His body released a starry light. The half of his body that remained quickly disappeared. At the same time, 5 familiar presences in 5 corners of Nether Realm shot into the sky. Shi's face had a holy light. There was a small smile at the corner of his lips. He said softly, thank you all. The blinding light quickly consumed his body. The light that shot into the sky covered all of Nether Realm. His expression was dignified and stern. We 6 are willing to use our crippled bodies and incomplete souls to forever guard Nether Realm. Abandoning reincarnation, to return to chaos, to pray for peace. Boom! The blinding light instantly swallowed Shi. There were only whispers left in the air. To pray for peace. 6 pillars of light in Nether Realm shot into the sky and disappeared. The large hall was completely empty. Zhuomo suddenly raised his head. He felt Shi's presence. To pray for peace. He seemed to whisper by Zhuomo's ear, but in a blink, Shi's presence disappeared. Suddenly, a rice-sized dot of light appeared on Zhuomo's face. It was cold, but filled with Shen power. Countless white dots came down from the sky like a beautiful fall of snow. Someone in the crowd suddenly exclaimed, this thing can increase Shen power. People immediately became excited. They flew into the air and chased after these dots of light. At the same time, the dots of light came like snow in every jia of Nether Realm. Zhuomo's spirits immediately dropped. He had been prepared mentally for Shi's death, but when it truly occurred, Zhuomo could not stop grieving. Shi was a unique existence to Zhuomo. He had unparalleled power. Of all the experts Zhuomo ever saw, Shi stood at the very top, but an expert like this was filled with love towards this land. Zhuomo had never felt that kind of deep emotion from anyone else. And in the end, in the eyes of many people, a worldly apparition like this appearing as the new king ascended to the throne proved even more just how extraordinary the new king was. The reign of light continued for 3 days and nights. All of NetherRealm partied wildly for these 3 days and nights. When the figures of 5 people appeared in front of Zhuomo, Zhuomo could not control his emotions any longer and his vision blurred. Young master. Ague sobbed as she charged into Zhuomo's arms just like back when they were small children. Zhuomo's tears flowed down his face. He couldn't speak. He could only pat Agui's back. After recovering, Ague lost that wooden face. She was a strong person and she quickly noticed her loss of composure. She was slightly embarrassed and broke free of Zhuomo's arms. However, 2 tracks of tears still remained on her face. Shitty. Wei Xing looked at Zhuomo with red-rimmed eyes. This man who was like steel was also overwhelmed with emotion. When he awoke and saw the 5 Shenwood coffins and thought of how Shitty had dragged the 5 Shenwood coffins to roam the endless void for 10 years, he could imagine the hardship. Eldest Xixiang. Zhuomo was also excited. The 2 exchanged a hard hug. Luoli stood next to Woli, having manifested into tangibility. Right now, he had broken free of the limitation of his technique. Both existing, neither a shadow. He was also excited. Xixiang. Sui Mo looked at Luo Li and smiled. Now Shidi finally gets his wish and can be together with Luo Li. Luo Li hadn't thought that Sui Mo would tease him. His face flushed red. Luo Li, on the other hand, was not embarrassed. While she still didn't have a smile on her face, she was not as cold as before. Darren. Zhong Ru tried to keep his voice calm, but Sui Mo still heard the trembling and excitement. Sui Mo punched Zhong Ru and said with a laugh, "Good, good, good." Of everyone, the calmest was Tsing Lianer. She still looked unaffected. When she found Sui Mo's gaze land on her, she blinked her eyes and said, "You have already become Nether King, why don't you become the 100 Savages King?" Sui Mo hadn't expected that Tsing Lianer would open with this. He stilled. "The relationship between our 100 Savage realm and you is closer than that of Nether realm. It is good that you became the Nether King, but you cannot favor one realm over the other. My father is still in 100 Savage realm." Tsing Lianer blinked as she spoke. Sui Mo's mind refocused. He said with a snicker, "I was thinking about this." Yes, Sui Mo had thought about this. Before, Sui Mo had thought about how to use his status as Nether King. He thought of 100 Savage realm. If he used his status as Nether King to attack 100 Savage realm, the resistance he would encounter would be far lower than if he attacked 100 Savage realm as Mo Cloud Sea. Because Nether realm and 100 Savage realm were both populated by Mo, the people of 100 Savage realm would not be as resistant to him as the Nether King. But if he attacked 100 Savage realm as Mo Cloud Sea, it would be easy to cause the Mo to resist. In these past few days, he had pondered the situation of 100 Savage realm. The Mo Shan Temple was the strongest of 100 Savage realm. Both the Mo Marshals Alliance and the Heroes Alliance had declined to ally with the Mo Shan Temple, meaning Mo Shan Temple still had a ways to go to unite 100 Savage realm. For him, this was undoubtedly a great opportunity. The power of Nether realm had not been significantly damaged in this fight for the throne. If Nether realm fought against Mo Shan Temple, the chances of victory were high. Using the authority of the new king to gather all to take down 100 Savage realm. Even if they just took the Mo Marshals Alliance and Heroes Alliance to squeeze the Mo Shan Temple space, that would be beneficial for Nether realm. Once his status as the king of Mo Cloud Sea was exposed, it would not be so easy to do such a thing. No one would sit by and watch as a titan took form and grew stronger. The Mo Shan Temple wouldn't, Kunlun wouldn't, and even the Yao wouldn't. They would ally together. Then they would be truly surrounded by enemies. If he fought against 100 Savage realm using the status of Nether King, that was an internal conflict among the Mo Kunlun would be wary, but not to the same extent. Once his identity was revealed, the Yao would not interfere. Fighting between Yaoma were rare, and so the Yao would not interfere. Also, Ming Yuyi was still too busy with her own affairs. If they could take down 100 Savage realm, and he became the king of the Mo, along with Mo Cloud Sea, his strength would be undefeatable. Even Kunlun would become the second power. At worst, he would just take over the Mo Martial Alliance. That way, the Nether realm's territory would be connected to Mo Cloud Sea, and an enormous faction would form. Also, Sui Mo still had other contingency plans. Chapter 892, Planning and Movement. Compared to the past, Kunlun was more prosperous and populated. In these years, Kunlun had grown much stronger and was the strongest in the world. The battle generals, led by Xue Dong, they fought on all fronts, and expanded Kunlun's territories greatly. But Xue Dong was not in a good mood. The Shidi were all discussing the Battle of Nether King River. The entire world was astonished by the Battle of Nether King River. It was the first time people saw how strong God level was. Even a top battle general like Xue Dong couldn't help but feel hopeless when he saw that kind of power. He thought of many methods, but right now, nothing could rival a God level. God level could destroy a Jia and easily move away. Xue Dong could not solve this problem. He had calculated. If the development of Shen power increased by the day, and the average level of battalion members increased by 2 power ranks, or they had more than 5 that were pseudo-god level experts, they might be able to match a god level 1, but these two were both implausible. His battalion already had the most accomplished disciples of Kunlun. They presented the strongest of the disciples. Increasing their cultivation by 2 levels would take a decade. And 5 pseudo-god levels were even more implausible. Right now, Kunlun, after more than a decade of cultivation, only possessed 2 pseudo-god levels. When Lin Qian had fled from the Central Plains and returned to Kunlun, he had spoken to Xue Dong about the strength of god level. Xue Dong had not completely believed him back then. How could the power of one person reach such a terrifying level? Yet after he saw the entire battle of Nether King River, Xue Dong couldn't rest for a few nights. He could not think of any method that would match the new Nether King. They had thought that Nether Realm would fall into chaos for a while, but after seeing the mirage, Xue Dong knew that Nether Realm would not descend into chaos. In these past years, he had always thought of Mo Cloud Sea as the enemy. Mo Cloud Sea had expanded rapidly in the past decade. While Xue Dong was wary, he was not scared. Kunlun's overall power was far greater than Mo Cloud Sea. The fact that Xue Mo had disappeared for 10 years was fatal for Mo Cloud Sea. From the intelligence the spies passed along, Mo Cloud Sea's internal politics were becoming more unstable. The conflict between the old and the new factions was increasing by the day. Lil Miss Gongsun was a strong battle general, but he was not an outstanding ruler. As time moved along, Mo Cloud Sea would gradually split. That would be the time when Kunlun would consume them. In Xue Dong's view, Mo Cloud Sea was a fruit that was maturing by the day. When the time came, it would be easily plucked. Suddenly, a Nether King came out of nowhere and was so strong. Xue Dong felt strong danger. With the new Nether King's power, he definitely would not be willing to just stay in Nether Realm. As his mind moved, Xue Dong's expression immediately became ugly. 100 Savage Realm. If the new Nether King moved, the first would definitely be 100 Savage Realm. Xue Dong was a top battle general and knew the intelligence on all the factions. He almost immediately judged that the 100 Savage Realm that was in chaos would not be able to stop the Nether King's advance. The Nether King had a high chance of becoming the first king to unite the Mo in 10,000 years. Xue Dong understood the Mo well. If that event really occurred, all of the Mo would become unprecedentedly powerful. The Mo did not like internal conflict. If the old Nether King had not aged, Hai Xian Bing would never rebelled. The Mo were the most disciplined of the 3 races. Their enthusiasm and reverence of the king came from the cultural traditions stretching back to the ancient era. Damn it! The Nether King that united the Mo would become the greatest obstacle to Kunlun uniting the world. At this time, an astounding sword essence suddenly erupted from the back mountain. Xue Dong stilled and his mind rang. Eldest Shi Xiang. He charged out of the room, and saw the figure releasing stunning sword essence in the sky. 2 words jumped into Xue Dong's mind: God level. Lin Qian was out of seclusion. He has God level. The information spread through the Xiuzhe realm under Kunlun's deliberate machination. All of the factions were alarmed. Kunlun was powerful to begin with. Everyone had just seen the power of God level, and now Lin Qian came out of seclusion. Kunlun's news immediately overtook the Nether Realm. Unlike Nether Realm, Kunlun had been the strongest sect in the world in the last thousands of years. Right now, they did not show any signs of decline, but grew even stronger. Now that Lin Qian came out as a god-level expert, it pushed Kunlun to an unprecedented level. Kunlun once again became the faction most likely to unite the world in people's eyes. What was most shocking was Mi Nan announcing that all of South Tianhuan was siding with Kunlun. After Tianhuan had split into North and South Tianhuan, they had continued to decline. However, South Tianhuan that was ruled by Mi Nan still possessed almost half of the original Tianhuan's territories. As Mi Nan joined Kunlun's side, Kunlun's power increased to a stunning level. Kunlun held over 2 realms. And Mo Cloud Sea was shy of 1 realm. Li Xianer's North Tianhuan had half a realm. The other factions such as Guliang Dao, and the 4 minor Diana sects shared half of a realm. Even if the Nether King took over 100 Savage Realm, they would just match Kunlun. They had the strongest god level, they had 3 top battle generals, Xue Dong, Mu Xian, and Mi Nan. They had a territory of 2 realms. Kunlun's top position had taken form. Yang Yuanhao was not in a good mood. Lin Qian become god level and Mi Nan siding with Kunlun immediately caused the situation to become terrible. Kunlun was truly too powerful, so powerful it was hopeless. Guliang Dao's spirits could not compare to before his losses to Xue Dong. While he had worked hard, there was not much improvement. Li Xian and the others had fought constantly with Mi Nan these years. They most likely had used up most of their wealth. Mi Nan was most likely in the same situation, so when he heard that Lin Qian had advanced to god level, he did not hesitate in siding with Kunlun. Even Yang Yuanhao had to admit that Mi Nan was a clever character. He had good judgment, and more importantly, he could put his face aside. Yang Yuanhao grimed inside. He couldn't do it. The 9 great Diana sects had split, with 5 siding with Kunlun. And the 4 minor Diana sects had not. Yang Yuanhao knew that both he, Guliang Dao, and Li Xian didn't have the ability to fight Kunlun. The only one that could match Kunlun for a while was Mo Cloud Sea. The pity was that there still wasn't any news of Zhua. Mo Cloud Sea had serious problems internally. Lin Qian had also reached god level. Yang Yuanhao also concluded in this era that a god-level expert was unstoppable. This really was a problem. Yang Yuanhao rubbed his head with a headache. He could not put his face aside to side with Lin Qian. For some reason, he did not like Kunlun's conduct. If only Zhue Mo was still here. He sighed inside. He suddenly missed that rascally and greedy character. Suddenly, a paper crane appeared in his room. Yang Yuanhao's eyes landed on the paper crane and he stilled. This paper crane seemed familiar. Was this someone he knew? He thought as he reached out. The paper crane flew into his hand. He unfolded the paper crane. A ray of light flew out of the paper crane. Inside the light, a figure appeared. Yang Yuanhao seemed to be struck by lightning. His eyes were wide as he looked in disbelief at the face in the ball of light. Zhue Mo. This person was still alive. While Zhue Mo's hair had turned completely white, he still recognized at a glance that this person was Zhue Mo, brother Yuanhao, long time no see. Yang Yuanhao was completely stunned. Guliang Dao was in a daze. There were streaks of white in his hair. He had been defeated soundly by Xue Dong in the fight for Shi Xian. His hopes of taking over Shi Xian also had failed. After the war, he had given up a larger portion of the territory than he planned. One was to thank Gongsun Cha for coming to his aid, the other was because he knew he did not have the strength to manage so many jia. That defeat at Shi Xian was a far greater blow to him than one could imagine. He had almost completely given up due to that defeat. When he heard the news that Lin Qian had reached god level and Mi Nan had sided with Kunlun came, his mood quickly became terrible. The situation was worsening. Kunlun was now so strong it seemed hopeless. In front of god-level experts, the so-called forts and defense lines were a joke. And in terms of top-level battle generals, Kunlun had an astounding team. The other factions had more battle generals in terms of numbers, but they fought for themselves. They lacked a person who could unite them. It would be good if Brother Zhue Mo was still alive. Pity, the heavens envied those with talent. Guliang Dao took a deep breath. He knew that their situation would become worse and worse until even taking a step back would be difficult. In his view, the final battle for the world would most likely be between Lin Qian and the Nether King. Now, it was to see if it was Lin Qian who first united the four realms, or the Nether King to first unite the Yamo. In Gu Yongdao's eyes, Kunlun had the advantage. Without brothers Mo Cloud Sea would have a difficult time stopping Kunlun in their tracks. Suddenly, he raised his head. A paper crane appeared nearby. Gu Yongdao froze where he was as though he had been struck by lightning. This paper crane was from Brothers Mo. Brothers Mo was still alive. Gu Yongdao was filled with joy. In this moment, all of the clouds over his mind were swept away. Even the fight against the colossal Kunlun did not seem so hopeless. His hands trembled as he impatiently unfolded the paper crane. That familiar face appeared in front of him. "Shitty, don't worry," Wei Sheng's expression was solemn. "With us present, we will not allow Kunlun to take one step into Mo Cloud Sea." Luo Li, Wo Li, Zhong Ru, and Xing Lianer nodded. They would go back to Mo Cloud Sea as fast as they could. Only Agui was staying with Swa Mo Lin Qian coming out of seclusion and Mi Nan taking sides immediately caused Mo Cloud Sea to be in a dangerous situation. Once Kunlun finished organizing, they would gather their forces and head for Mo Cloud Sea. "I will act with speed on my side," Swa Mo said with seriousness. His preparations had finished, and an enormous net was created. Swa Mo knew that starting today, they were entering the true final battle. It was time to make their move. Chapter 893, Action. The leaders of the factions of Nether Realm had gathered together in this hall. This was the first time that the Nether King had called a meeting after taking the throne. The ones who came were all the strongest of their region and held important statuses. This was the largest meeting in the history of Nether Realm. In the era of the old Nether King, there had been no central governance, and a meeting of such scale had never been called. This was the first time many people attended the king's meeting. The large hall of Nether King Palace was completely silent. Everyone sat properly and the Nether King was seated high upon the throne. They were slightly shocked at being summoned. At the coronation for the Nether King, they had taken turns to swear fealty towards the new king. Everyone was secretly speculating about the content of this meeting. The most plausible conclusion they reached was that it was time to settle the debts. King was likely going to sentence the rebels of Eastern Nether Mansion and Northern Plains Ice Mansion. The mood inside the hall was slightly depressed. People's hearts were in the air. The great majority of them had not publicly supported the new king. If the new king remembered this, then they would not have good days in the future. At this time, each of them were anxious and afraid for themselves. Seeing on the throne, Swa Mo looked down at his subordinates. He could clearly see the panic and fear in their eyes. Behind the mask, Swa Mo laughed. He had no intentions of carrying out a great purge of his political enemies. This was a once-in-a-thousand-year chance sitting in front of him. How would he waste it on instituting a new political order? The price of a great cleanse would be a long period of instability and internal conflict, resulting in a decrease in power. He slowly spoke, his voice deep and aloof, "I have summoned everyone for one matter." Everyone's expressions immediately became nervous. Some people unconsciously straightened. In preparing to invade 100 Savage Realm. After Swa Mo said this, it was completely silent. Everyone thought that they had heard it incorrectly. Moments later, the hall exploded. Everyone was stunned by the topic that King had raised. No one had expected that King would plan to attack 100 Savage Realm only a few days after ascending to the throne. This was so great. Swa Mo looked at the people below. Their panicked expression had disappeared and was replaced by joy and excitement. As expected, the Mo liked fighting. Swa Mo was slightly startled inside. If this was any other place and he had just ascended to the throne, advisors would urge him to first stabilize his power. However, these people seemed to be even more interested in attacking 100 Savage Realm than Zhuo was. Actually, this was because Zhuo did not understand the previous political situation. After Shi united Nether Realm, all of Nether Realm had hoped to march on 100 Savage Realm. However, Shi had refused their petitions. The reason that Shi had united Nether Realm was because this was his homeland. He had no ambitions towards 100 Savage Realm's territory. But the Nether Realm was filled with excitement and hope towards conquest. They thought that Nether Realm was overwhelmingly strong compared to their opponent, and 100 Savage Realm could not stop them. The time to unite the Mo had arrived. But under Shi's unquestioned authority their ambitions and hopes were suppressed. So when Zhuo threw out the topic, the people exploded. King! The Ghost Nether clan is willing to be the vanguard. The clan leader of the Ghost Nether clan stood up and said excitedly. This seemed to poke the hornet's nest. The Dashi Nether Horse clan is most suitable for being the vanguard. A tall and thin middle-aged person stood up. Please, your Dashi Nether Horse clan is best used as spies. We, the Vajra Rhino clan, are the best to be the vanguard. A large man that was broad-boned and sturdily built came out with a proud expression. The horn on his head flashed with fierce light. No one would concede to the others, and the fighting did not stop. In Zhuo's eyes, this group reminded him of a busy scene from the morning market. A beat later, he recovered. He had originally thought that people would be cautious toward such a serious decision, if not outright opposing it. He hadn't thought it would be a situation like this. This group of people were fighting to be first as though there was a prize to be earned. People shouted, their faces flushed, spit flying. Some people pointed at others' noses and swore. Others appeared as though they were about to push up their sleeves and start to fight. An Mo frowned, and then shouted, "You are in front of King." His voice was not loud but the entire hall immediately quieted. An Mo's status had been high before, and right now, he was both loyal to and deeply trusted by King. His authority was second only to King. It seems that people are interested. On the throne, Zhuo looked at the people below. He nodded and then said, "An Mo, I will let you arrange this. Liang Wei, you will assist an Mo." An Mo had the ability, the authority, and the experience. Moreover, he was extremely loyal. He was the best choice. Yes. An Mo responded. Yes. Liang Wei also responded. Zhuo did not give out direct orders. He didn't know any of these people and wasn't familiar with any of the factions. It would be better to leave this to an Mo. In terms of strength, Nether Realm was much stronger than 100 Savage Realm. As long as they didn't make a fatal mistake, they would win. An honest and open attack was the right path of war. An Mo was an astounding battle general. Maybe he was not as adaptable as Gongsun Chan Bihan, but he was reliable and would not make rash decisions. Also, there was Liang Wei. While Zhuo had not seen astounding any performances from Liang Wei on their journey, he was the only one other than Gongsun Cha Shidi that had won Pu Yao's praise. Zhuo was filled with anticipation towards Liang Wei's abilities. If Liang Wei had Lil Miss skill, no, even Bihan's skill, Zhuo could die happy. 3 top-level battle generals, they could rival Kun Luan. Soon, the news that King had decided to invade 100 Savage Realm spread. All of Nether Realm boiled. An Mo did not fail Zhuo's hopes. He quickly finished organizing and gathering supplies and troops at an astounding speed. The army of 300,000 that had surrendered to Zhuo had been in his control all this time. These 300,000 people were the main force for invading 100 Savage Realm this time. An Mo announced that this war was how they would atone for their crimes. They needed to use service to trade for the futures of their clansmen. An army of 300,000. In An Mo's view, this army of 300,000 elites was enough. No one in 100 Savage Realm would be able to stop such a large army. But would the other factions tolerate passing over such a good chance to expand? Their actions would create opportunities for others. All of Nether Realm believed that this battle would be likely to be the one to unite the MO. This would be a great battle that would leave a great mark on history. Anyone that missed participating in this would regret it for the rest of their lives. These people almost broke the gates of MO's resistance. An MO was bothered by their requests, but he knew what these people thought. He immediately spread the word that only the elite of each clan qualified to attend this campaign. Large clans picked the elite members from inside their clan and formed elite battalions to participate. Those little clans didn't have so many elites, but each clan would have a few experts. These experts left their clan grounds and participated as individuals. Mo never thought that his decision would end up like this. His personal reputation had been of great effect. Such a great movement could not be concealed. 100 Savage Realm and all of the world learned that Nether Realm was about to invade 100 Savage Realm. Almost all the elite of Nether Realm had gathered under the Nether King's command. An army of 500,000. It was the largest battalion to appear in thousands of years. All of 100 Savage Realm shook in fear. All the factions were so shocked by this unprecedented battalion that they lost the ability to speak. Even Kunlun received a shock. The entire world feared the Nether King that made such major moves just after ascending to the throne. Kunlun. After entering God level, Lin Qian's presence was even more controlled. At this time, he looked the same as an ordinary person. In front of him, Chao Xian, Xue Dong, Mu Xian, Mi Nan, and the other higher-ups of Kunlun were gathered together. This Nether King is skilled. An army of 500,000. 100 Savage Realm is in danger. Xue Dong scared in wonder. Everyone agreed with this. Lin Qian said, "What does everyone feel about the Nether King's chances of winning?" "A certain win." Xue Dong did not hesitate. He and Lin Qian were extremely close, and so he had no restraints. Xue Dong was the head battle general of Kunlun. His words carried great weight. Lin Qian's gaze turned towards other people. Mu Xian nodded in agreement. Mi Nan had just joined Kunlun and wanted to demonstrate his abilities. Seeing Lin Qian's gaze turn to him, he said in detail, "An army of 500,000. The first faction will attack are the MO Martial Alliance and the Heroes Alliance, which are both declining. They may even surrender immediately. The only one that is a threat to the Nether King will be the MO Shen Temple. However, the difference in power between the two is too great. The MO Shen Temple will be able to hold out for a while, but definitely not for long. The power of a god level is not for show. The Nether King will not just win, but most likely win quickly." Lin Qian's expression was grave as he sighed. It seems the MO uniting cannot be avoided. This is not good news for our Kunlun. Chao Xian also had a similarly serious expression as he said, "This new Nether King is a great enemy to Kunlun. It is likely that our final enemy will be them. Right now, we need time. If the Nether King unites the MO, he won't just have a territory of 2 realms, he will be the king of all MO. The MO race is very strange. Once a king appears among them, they will become extremely united." Everyone nodded. Chao Xian continued, "The Nether King that will possess 2 realms will become the strongest faction alongside with Kunlun. Right now, we need to consider what will the Nether King do after uniting the MO." Xue Dong pondered this. There are 2 possible paths. One is attacking MO Cloud Sea or Guliang Dao. While our territories also border the MO territories, the possibility that they attack us is not high. The Nether King might not be prepared to fight to the death against us just yet. The other path is to attack the Yao. Yes. Mi Nan nodded. Mo Cloud Sea or Guliang Dan cannot stop the Nether King. They will be the most likely targets and he will conquer both of them. If this occurs, it will be detrimental to us. The best outcome is if he attacks the Yao. Ming Yuyi is not an easy person to deal with. The best for us is if the two are both wounded. Time. Chao Xin's eyes flashed with cold light. We need to strengthen ourselves during the time the Nether King is uniting the Mo. We need to keep our advantage against the Nether King. If we can unite the 4 realm before he completely takes over the 100 Savage realm, he can only attack the Yao. Then who will we attack first? Lin Qian said. North Tianhuan. Chao Xian said coldly. North Tianhuan. Xue Dong said gravely. North Tianhuan is weak, and is like a bone in our throats that must be plucked first. Mu Xian said. North Tianhuan. Mi Nan was in a complex mood. Then let us move. Lin Qian said briskly. Chapter 894 Response. The mobilization rate of the Mo was astounding. Sui Mo was very astonished. Even Mo Cloud Sea would take longer to move people on such scale. And in the Shouja world, Mo Cloud Sea was considered the best. Fighting and battle had a special place in the minds of Mo. Their enthusiasm towards battle was unlike the Shouja and the Yao. The Shouja did not fear battle, the Yao did not like battle, while the Mo were enthusiastic towards battle. In Zhuo Mo's view, this attitude was madness and unreasonable. The decision to leave an Mo in charge had evident effects. In a short 15 days, all 500,000 Nether Realm troops had finished preparing for war. Nether Realm anticipated the impending war. The morale of the populace was high. Just before Zhuo Mo prepared to depart, the news that Kunlun had began attacking Tianhuan was passed to Zhuo Mo through Mo Cloud Sea. Zhuo Mo and Lin Qian had fought for many years and were familiar with each other. Almost instantly, Zhuo Mo under what Lin Qian planned. In these past days, Zhuo Mo had been studying the situation of the Shouja world. Large amounts of intelligence and information had been passed over from Mo Cloud Sea. The situation of the Shouja world gradually became clear. North Tianhuan, who had greatly expended itself, was not a match for Kunlun. Also, Zhuo Mo speculated that Kunlun would have Mi Nan lead at the front. Mi Nan would know the most about Tianhuan's territories. After siding with Kunlun, Mi Nan had been treated very well. He didn't just lead the battalion he had before, he had received large amounts of jingxi and resources. His soldiers were strong and well supplied. In order to avoid suspicion, and to prove his ability, Mi Nan would fight as hard as he could. Li Xian'er's commanders were on par with Kunlun's. Mu Shuang was one of the 10 top battle generals, and Gongye Xiaorong had grown into a top battle general in the past 10 years. However, Tianhuan had been greatly wounded by the civil war. The internal conflict of the past years had used up most of their resources. While Mu Shuang and Gongye Xiaorong were skilled, they were restrained by the lack of resources. The more they fought, the less manpower they had, the more resources they had spent. Tianhuan would not be able to fight against Kunlun's armies. Once they swallowed Tianhuan, Kunlun would obtain another half of a realm. They would have a territory the size of 3 realms. Such a large territory was suffocatingly large. However, Zhuo Mo did not plan to let Kunlun have it so easily. His eyes flashed with cold light. In terms of famous commanders, Kunlun was nothing. Gu Liangdao threw the report that indicated Mu Shuang had been defeated to the table and stood up. Big brother. The preparations are done. Shuang Yu said gravely. His eyes flashed with light and were filled with fighting spirit. 10 years ago, they had been defeated by Xue Dong. Over these 10 years, Shuang Yu had never slacked on his cultivation for a moment. Right now, his power was at pseudo-god level. It was time to repay the enemy for that defeat. All of the battalions under Gu Yongdao's command held a grudge. They had lost so much in that battle. That battle had been a serious blow to Gu Yongdao especially, and he had been discouraged for a very long time. Gu Yongdao held a high place in the hearts of these people. Every person felt extremely discomfort when they saw boss so discouraged, and their hate of Kunlun increased by the day. Gu Yongdao's hair was peppered with white and his gaze was weary. However, today he gave off a great presence just like he did in the past, as though he was looking down on the world. There seemed to be fire burning in his eyes. Gu Yongdao nodded and walked towards the door. He pushed open the door. The organized battalion stood upright in the cold wind outside. Each person's face flashed with bright fighting spirit. They did not retreat in the cold wind, their backs straight and their gazes heated. Gu Yongdao looked at the battalion that he had created, the faces of his subordinates who had followed him for so many years. He was filled with emotion. He suppressed his excitement and said, 10 years ago, we were defeated, 10 years later, we fight again. Thinking of the terrible defeat 10 years ago, everyone's breathing became heavy and their expressions twisted. What we lost 10 years ago, we will take back with our hands 10 years later. Gu Yongdao's gaze was like a blade that slowly swept through as he said, emphasizing each word, we will win. 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 The tsunami of shouts echoed in the cold wind. Everyone within it felt as though their blood suddenly started to burn. Depart. Gu Yongdao was the first to move. Yang Yuanhao looked carefully on the paper crane on his hand as though there was something growing on the paper crane. He had been in sitting this position for the better half of an hour. This guy making such a great fuss upon his first reappearance. Lin Qian had terrible luck to encounter an opponent like this, so pitiful. Yang Yuanhao muttered inside. However, he had an expression of schadenfreude. 4 hours ago, he had received the news that Kunlun was unstoppable against Tianhuan. Alright, the villain will have their own opponents. Yang Yuanhao comforted himself. He knew very well that both he and Gu Yongdao had lost the ability to remain neutral. The world becoming united could not be stopped. They could only join a side. Originally, he had thought that Kunlun's unification of the 4 realms was certain. Who would have expected that Zhuemo, who had disappeared for 10 years, would suddenly reappear and disrupt the situation? If there was no Zhuemo, then Kunlun was unstoppable. Zhuemo being alive didn't just mean that the powerful Mo Cloud Sea would not collapse, there was something else more important. Zhuemo's existence would form an even stronger alliance. The alliance of Gu Yongdao, the 4 minor Diana sects, and Mo Cloud Sea would be a strong alliance. Even Li Xian Air and the others of North Tianhuan were potential allies for this alliance. Yang Yuanhao had formed an unspoken agreement with Zhuemo all those years ago. He had been prepared to side with Mo Cloud Sea in the past. However, he hadn't done so after Zhuemo disappeared. But he still had helped Gongsun Cha conquer Shi Xian at the crucial moment. Gu Yongdao had great ambitions in the past. That defeat 10 years ago had crushed his hopes. In Yang Yuanhao's opinion, Gu Yongdao would side with Mo Cloud Sea. If they sided with Mo Cloud Sea, then Mo Cloud Sea would have 4 top battle generals, 1 more than Kunlun. Mo Cloud Sea would become the only choice for the factions that could not side with Kunlun or disliked Kunlun. When Yang Yuanhao had received Zhuemo's paper crane, he had started to prepare to lead the 4 minor Diana sects to join Mo Cloud Sea. However, Zhuemo's plan was really devious. A thread of flame rose on Yang Yuanhao's hand and consumed the paper crane. Not even ashes were left. Among the flames, Yang Yuanhao stood up. He had not been idle in these 10 years. Li Xian Air's face was ashen. Mi Shuang had been defeated. Defeated by Mi Nan. Li Xian Er Knww. The difference in skill between Mi Nan and Mu Shuang was not large. In the past years, both of them had exchanged victories and defeats. Yet Mi Nan, who had been resupplied, was stronger, and Mu Shuang's battalion was in remnants. They didn't even have enough Shen equipment. Mi Nan was familiar with Tian Huan's tactics. Possessing an absolute advantage, his attacks came in suffocating waves. Mu Shuang could not stop Mi Nan's attack and successively lost. For 10 years, the battle between North and South Tian Huan had never stopped. No one in Tian Huan could accept that Tian Huan had split. Even tired to the bone, they still persisted. Li Xian Er was bewildered. In these years, she hadn't given up. She had cultivated day and night. While she had not reached God level, she had successfully reached pseudo-God level. In another 5 or 6 years, she would be able to enter God level. If she was God level, Tian Huan would be able to fight back. Li Xian Er was filled with self-recrimination. Gongye Xiaorong walked in. The handsome youth of the past now had a mature aura. There was no marks of the pride of the past. He noticed Li Xian Er's expression and sighed inside. "Little Shimmy, do not blame yourself," he comforted softly, "as long as we have a clear conscience." Liang Xian Er raised her head and looked at Gongye Xiaorong. She said determinedly, "Shi Xiang, do not comfort me. As long as there is a chance, I will not give up." A hint of admiration flashed through Gongye Xiaorong's gaze. He nodded and said, "That is right. Little Shimmy, it seems that we cannot stop Kunlun with our own strength. Shi Xiang means we should recruit some allies." Li Xian Er reacted quickly. "Yes. At this time, the only one that has the strength to help us is Mo Cloud Sea," Gongye Xiaorong said gravely. "Shimmy, please go to Mo Cloud Sea. I believe that Lil Miss Gong Sun understands that without the lips, the teeth will feel cold." "All right." Li Xian Er did not hesitate and nodded briskly. "Elder Mu and I will try to gain time for Shimmy to negotiate," Gongye Xiaorong said gravely. Seeing Gongye Xiaorong's grave countenance, Li Xian Er suddenly realized. Elder Mu and Xiaorong Shixiang were prepared to sacrifice themselves. Tears streaming down, Li Xian Er bit her lips to stop the sobs from coming out. She wiped her tears, raised her head and said with determination, "I will persuade Mo Cloud Sea. Then I will rely on Shimmy." Gongye Xiaorong patted Li Xian Er's shoulder and turned to leave. Li Xian Er finally could not stop herself and sobbed. The army was vast. The Nether Realms campaign had not concealed their actions but was as public as possible. When the army of 500,000 flew through the sky and covered it, the land would darken under their shadows. The troops that seemed endless made people unable to muster up any resistance. Everywhere they passed, there was only trembling and terror. Suemo used Shi's chariot. It had been stored in Nether King Palace and naturally became Suemo's property now. This Nether King chariot that was famed throughout the Nether Realm was enormous and like a small mobile palace. Seeing the Nether King chariot, Suemo found that while his golden chariot looked grand, it was still lacking in magnificence compared to this chariot. The Nether King chariot was extremely stable when it flew. Inside the chariot, Suemo sat on the throne, and the commanders gathered below him. People noticed that a female mask-wearing guard was next to King, and secretly speculated to her identity and origins. An Mo was in charge of the strategic meeting. An Mo and Liang Wei had worked together to make this war plan. Liang Wei knew 100 Savage Realm better than an Mo's. Mo could not point out any problems in the plan the two had made. However, unlike the calm they showed, an Mo and Liang Wei were extremely nervous. It was the first time the two commanded such a large-scale war and they couldn't help but feel nervous. Their first target was the Mo Martial Alliance. When the enormous army of the Nether King that seemed to be endless appeared on the horizon at the border, all of 100 Savage Realm was stunned. Chapter 895, an unexpected occurrence. The Nether Realm being so overt with their mobilizations meant that it gave the Mo Marshals Alliance time to move their battalions in response. All of the battalions of the Mo Marshal Alliance were moved to the border between the Mo Marshals Alliance and Nether Realm. The other factions of 100 Savage Realm didn't take the opportunity to attack the Mo Marshals Alliance, but sent their battalions to help. Everyone knew that the Mo Marshal Alliance alone could not stop the army of the Nether King. The presence of the Nether King's army caused 100 Savage Realm that had been filled with conflict to unite for the first time. Everyone had fought for many years and were familiar with each other. No one wanted to become the captives of the Nether King. The Mo Marshals Alliance, the Heroes Alliance, and the Mo Shan Temple all sent their strongest battalions, gathering over 300,000, to form the 100 Savage Allied Army. Beast Cry Jie, Desolate Jie, Skywood Jie, First Clear Jie, Eastern Snake Jie. These 5 Jies were the gateways for Nether Realm to enter 100 Savage Realm. Once the army of the Nether King broke the defense line of these 5 Jie, there were more than 7 paths to penetrate deep into 100 Savage Realm. The 500,000 strong of the Nether King would be able to sweep 100 Savage Realm. This meant that the 5 Jies defense line became the crucial location of the first battle. The Mo Marshal Alliance led by Gongzi Shi was in charge of Skywood Jie, the Heroes Alliance was positioned at First Clear Jie and Eastern Snake Jie. The locations under the most pressure, Beast Cry Jie and Desolate Jie, were being held by the strongest faction Mo Shan Temple. 100 Savage Realm had good commanders and elite battalions. The army of 300,000 gathered at the 5 Jie. These 5 Jie were located adjacent to each other and formed a horn. They had the advantage of being on home territory. Meaning the 100 Savage Allied Army had the impenetrable defense line of the 5 Jie. The Nether King would not be able to defeat the 5 Jie defense line unless he had an army of 1,000,000. This would be an unprecedentedly large battle. No one in Nether Realm had thought that 100 Savage Realm would put aside their grudges and unite. While the 100 Savage Allied Army had 200,000 fewer troops, they had the benefit of the defense line. This meant that the difference in power between the two sides was not as large as imagined. If they just attacked head-on, the fatalities would be astounding. Mo and Liang Wei hadn't expected that 100 Savage Realm would unite and create an allied army. The mood inside the large hall was low, they were discouraged. Everyone was experienced in battle. Seeing the 100 Savage Allied Army appearing as though they would hold out until the end, their expressions turned grave. This battle would be crueler than they imagined. There was not much technique to speak of in trench warfare like this. Bravery and decisiveness were most important, and this usually meant large numbers of fatalities. Their enemies were not short-sighted people. Their army of 500,000 were being blocked at the border. This was like a bucket of cold water poured over everyone's heads. However, they could not retreat. They had been so confident before, if they retreated now, wouldn't they become a joke? Also, the blow to morale would be fatal. First set up camp. Mo saw that no one had a solution and helped them out. Everyone sighed in relief. If King gave the order to attack now, they would most likely come back bloodied. Mo and Liang Wei stayed behind. This subordinate. Mo's face was full of shame. King had given him control of the entire situation at the start. He was filled with frustration at having ruined it. Mo waved his hand and interrupted Mo. He said coolly, "Right now, determining a solution is most important. What do you think?" Mo adjusted his emotions and said after a moment of thought, "Attacking head-on is not plausible, the fatalities will be too high. We have investigated. The defense line is not very strong, but after constant preparation over the last few days, it is much stronger than before. More importantly, the battalions are large. Almost 70% of 100 Savages battalions were conscripted. This is not a bad thing. If we win this battle, then 100 Savage Realm will be ours," Mo said coldly. He glanced at Liang Wei. This person that Pu Yao had praised endlessly hadn't shown much skill. He asked, Liang Wei, what do you think? Liang Wei had been twisting his mind to ponder the problem. Hearing Zuomo ask, he shook his head and said, I have not thought it through. Zuomo saw this and said, go back and think. After the two left, Zuomo frowned as well. He hadn't thought that 100 Savage Realm would actually unite. What Zuomo didn't know was that it was because his reputation had been too stunning. The mirage of the battle at Nether King River had spread through 100 Savage Realm. The power of a god level made everyone feel fear and awe. In terms of individual fame, Zuomo had surpassed Shi. Shi had united Nether Realm, but people thought of him more as Nether King. 100 Savage Realm had not been affected. However, this new Nether King caused many of the people of 100 Savage Realm to consider if the Nether King qualified to become the king of all Mo. It was because of Zuomo's strong performance that the factions of 100 Savage Realm were alarmed. All of them knew that there was only one result if they did not unite, Nether King would unite the Mo. This was something that the Mo Shan Temple, the Mo Marshals Alliance, and the Heroes Alliance were not willing to see. Nether King became the top enemy for all the factions of 100 Savage Realm. Zuomo did not have a solution. At this time, 100 Savage Realm's rear was empty. If he had Gongsun Cha and Bihan take the opportunity, they could cause 100 Savage allied army to panic. But only relying on the forces of half of Tian Huan, Gu Yongdao, and Yang Yuanhao was not enough to fight Kunlun. The situation of the Four Realm mirrored 100 Savage Realm. Mo Cloud Sea, Tian Huan, the four minor Diana sects, and Gu Yongdao had allied together to fight Kunlun. Zuomo grimaced. However, he was not discouraged. There would be many solutions to any problem. Also, he had the initiative. He had to think of a good solution. Li Xian'er's arrival was not known by many. The one that received her was Gongsun Cha. 10 years had passed, but Gongsun Cha's bashful smile was the same as before, the one of the neighbor's boy. No one could connect him to that world-shocking invincible battle general. Li Xian'er's complexion was slightly fragile, but her expression was calm. She bowed towards Gongsun Cha. Greetings to Mr. Gongsun Cha. Gongsun Cha politely returned the greeting. Miss Li does not have to be so polite. Li Xian'er did not waste words and went directly to the main topic. I have come to ask for aid from Mo Cloud Sea. If the lips are gone, the teeth will be left exposed to the cold. Mr. Gongsun is unparalleled in your intelligence, you should see this more clearly than I do. No matter what Mo Cloud Sea demands, as long as my Tian Huan can achieve it, we will not refuse. She then took out a large jade box. The jade box was of fine quality and high grade. This is the pace of the Shin device that Tian Huan obtained from Mr. Zuomo in the past. We should have personally returned it to Mr. Zuomo, the rightful owner. Now at this juncture, we can only give it to Mr. Gongsun. Many thanks, Miss Xian'er. Gongsun Cha took the jade box and returned a bow gravely. A hint of admiration flashed through his eyes. He had to say that Li Xian'er was really wise. She was sincere and decisive. She knew that at this time she had no room to discuss conditions and so allowed Mo Cloud Sea to set the price. Pity that Kunlun didn't give her any time to negotiate. Gongsun Cha saw it clearly. Regardless of whether Kunlun would succeed this time, North Tian Huan would have a difficult time surviving. Gongsun Cha nodded and said, we only have one condition. Li Xian'er sighed in relief inside. As long as Mo Cloud Sea was willing to negotiate, that meant that they were willing to send aid. Li Xian'er didn't care about the conditions now. The things that Tian Huan had left were pitifully few. They would not be able to hold the half-realm of territory they had left. Rather than give it to Kunlun, she would rather give it to Mo Cloud Sea. She focused. Please speak. We have no ambitions in regards to Tian Huan's lands. Li Xian'er was even more curious. They didn't want territory, then what did they want? Tian Huan really had no wealth left. We want 10,000 managerial-level forgers and seal Xiu, Gong Sun Cha said coolly. Li Xian'er's body shook. She hadn't thought that Mo Cloud Sea would desire those forgers and seal Xiu. In Tian Huan, any forgers and seal Xiu that were on managerial level were skilled and experienced. They would be able to work independence. These people were the most valuable part of Tian Huan and the true wealth that Tian Huan had accumulated over the thousands of years. Gong Sun Cha saw Li Xian'er's internal struggle. He did not fear that the other wouldn't agree, but he still spoke. I heard that the forgers and seal Xiu of Tian Huan have not forged for several years. Gong Sun Cha's words shattered Li Xian'er's last mental block. Gong Sun Cha was right. Due to the long war, the resources had been used up. Right now, Tian Huan lacked materials. Without materials, these forging experts didn't have any solution. They could only work on repairing Shen equipment. If these forging experts joined, Mo Cloud Sea that was already famed for its forging would receive a great boost in their strength. Mi Nan had led South Tian Huan to join Kunlun. Many forgers and seal Xiu had entered Kunlun. It could be predicted that Kunlun's Shen equipment level would increase greatly in the near future. Lil Miss also saw this. In his view, Tian Huan was poor right now. They only had two treasures. One was these seal Xiu skilled in forging, and the other were the two top battle generals, Mu Shuang and Gongye Xiaorong. Mu Shuang and Gongye Xiaorong would not be able to be requested, so Lil Miss targeted these forging experts. In Lil Miss' view, Li Xian'er would agree. One was because she didn't have any other choice, the other was because while these forgers were astoundingly valuable, in Tian Huan which lacked materials, they were not of use at all. I do not agree. Unexpectedly, Li Xian'er shook her head. Gong Sun Cha frowned and looked in surprise at Li Xian'er. Li Xian'er seemed to have reached some conclusion. We will join Mo Cloud Sea. Astounding words. Once Li Xian'er said this, she felt light. That invisible burden that had been weighing on her disappeared. Her face glowed with another kind of light. When Gong Sun Cha mentioned the seal Xiu, Li Xian'er realized. Tian Huan was at the end of its path. Even if they managed to survive this time, a Tian Huan that lost their seal Xiu wouldn't be as strong as a normal faction, much less survive sitting between the two titans of Kunlun and Mo Cloud Sea. The four realms had reached the era of the titans. The weak Tian Huan was fated to die. Not just Tian Huan, the four minor Diana sects, and Gu Liang Dao were the same. Rather than being forced to choose after their defeat, it would be better to join Mo Cloud Sea when they still had value. This way, aid was expected. With Mu Shuang and Gongye Xiaorong as the supports in the future, the days of Tian Huan's people would not be bad. Once Li Xian'er thought through all this, she knew that this was the best chance. So she immediately decided. Gong Sun Cha was stunned. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.